Chapter 562. Then you refused? Steele asked in a curious voice before placing her hands on Su Yi's shoulders again. The white and tender fingers that were filled with strength, as well as the skillful technique Steele had invented, made Su Yi feel his entire body relax. He couldn't help letting out a satisfied moan. After letting out a few comfortable moans, Su Yi let out a sigh and replied, "Of course I refused. Could it be that you want me to marry an elven wife?" "There's nothing bad about that," Steele said with a faint smile. "Elven girls are all so beautiful, and their personalities are much more straightforward than normal human girls, making them easier to get along with. For example, Agnes is very good." "That's right. How about you ask Elder Alicia to marry Agnes? Agnes often says that she likes being with you, so I think that if you want to marry her, she won't oppose it. Moreover, if it's her, it'll be easy for us to get along with her. Isn't that good?" "What's good about it?" He looked at her in annoyance. "Stop joking. I'm a human. How could I really marry an elven girl? Then again, I already have you as my wife, so I won't marry another woman. I don't oppose you marrying a few more." Steele laid on Su Yi's shoulder and said with a soft laugh in his ear, "Anyway, I'm very busy right now and don't have much time to accompany you. As for Liz and Linda, they don't have much to talk to you about, so marrying a few more wives to accompany you isn't a bad thing, right?" Su Yi looked at Steele with a frown. "Are you telling the truth? Don't forget, you're my only wife right now. I don't believe that you really want me to marry a few more wives." "Of course. That's a lie." Steele giggled. "Of course I want you to only belong to me and only have me in your heart. But this kind of thinking is too selfish. With your current position, if you can only have one woman, many people will accuse me of being too jealous. Even grandfather told me that you're the only one left in your family. In order for your family to grow, you should have a few more women and have more children. Are you treating me like a stud horse?" Su Yi knit his brows. He grabbed Steele's hand on his shoulder and pulled her in front of him. He stared into her eyes and said with a serious look, "Don't worry about what others say, Steele. I just want you to tell me if you like this. Tell me the truth." Steele avoided Su Yi's eyes, and after pausing, she said with a soft sigh, "Of course I'm not willing to share you with others, but grandfather is right and the others are right. I've said, don't care about what others think. As long as you're not willing, it's enough." Su Yi said seriously, "Although I'm a normal man and I've thought about having countless beautiful women in my arms, as a man, I have to be responsible for my wife. You're my wife, so I'll only take care of your thoughts first. It doesn't matter what the other women think. Actually, if it wasn't for your insistence or connivance, I wouldn't even touch Liz and Linda. Do you believe me?" Steele looked at Su Yi in a daze for a while before slowly nodding. Her eyes were a bit hazy. "I believe you. Su Yi, you're this kind of person. You're different from most men in this world. Evita and Akali are right. Being able to meet you and become your wife is my fortune. You're wrong. Being able to meet you is my fortune." Su Yi smiled and pinched Steele's face. "So don't let your imagination run wild. I'm satisfied with having you as my wife. I'm not interested in marrying a few more. Moreover, I'm even less interested in the marriage proposal from Elder Alicia and Elder Lysania, which has obvious political implications. I even hate it." Hearing Su Yi's blunt comments, Steele froze for a moment before waking up from being touched. "You're saying that Elder Alicia and Elder Lysania want you to marry an elven girl. Is it a proposal with political implications?" Steele frowned. "They're elves. Would they do something like that? The elves aren't as otherworldly as you think. If it was like this, they wouldn't have chosen to cooperate with me." Su Yi said with a smile. "And this isn't my own speculation. It's what Elder Alicia and Elder Lysania said. They told you personally that it was a proposal with political implications?" Steele asked in shock. "Of course they wouldn't be so straightforward. But the two elders told me very straightforwardly that the reason they made this proposal was to deepen the relationship between me and the two elven tribes. It would be best if I could have offspring with the elven girl in their tribe. This way, the two elven tribes could be more integrated into human society." "That doesn't seem right." Steele was a bit confused. "Don't the elves always look down on humans? Because of this, The half-elves born from the union of elves and humans would have a harder time in the elven tribe than in the human tribe. Why would the two elders take the initiative to make this proposal? This is also a symbol of their change. The two elders said that if the elves want to fully integrate into human society and continue to survive on this continent, this is a step that must be taken. The other humans and elves of the two tribes won't accept them. So I'm the only human that has received the approval of the elves of the two tribes. So I'm the most suitable. He explained. It's like this. Steel knit her brows to think about it before giving a gentle nod. No wonder you feel that this proposal is filled with political implications. This is because the two elders made this proposal for the future of the elves, but they didn't consider any emotional factors at all. I think, as long as you agree, perhaps they'll let you pick any elven beauty from the two tribes. How about it, Sui? Are you moved? Che, have I not seen enough elven beauties in the past 2 years? Not to mention Agnes seeing them often, even yesterday. Sui suddenly stopped. Even if he didn't care about anything in front of Steel, he was embarrassed to say that he had been naked with Elder Lucia and Elder Lysania yesterday. But as the mistress of the manor, how could Steel not know what happened yesterday? Seeing Sui suddenly stop, she immediately understood what he wanted to say and covered her mouth as she secretly laughed. What? Sui, could it be that you don't like the normal elven girls and like the two elders? Seeing Steel laugh until her eyes turned into crescent moons, Sui angrily slapped her butt and roared, "What nonsense are you saying? All right, let's stop discussing this matter. Anyway, I won't agree, so don't think too much about this matter, understand?" Steel rubbed her, but that was a bit sore from being slapped by Sui, and said with a faint smile, "I saw the way the two elders looked at you before they left. I'm afraid they won't give up that easily. The elves are famous for being stubborn. Since the two elders have already made their decision, and it's for such an important reason, they will definitely think of a way to achieve their goal." Sui gave a cold snort. "I won't agree. Can they force me? They can't send out a few elven girls to rape me, right?" Steel pursed her lips into a smile. That might not be the case. Sui glared at her. After thinking about it, he got up and put on his clothes before heading out. "What are you going to do now? You're not going to take this time to rest?" Steel asked in a surprised voice. "I suddenly thought of something. I don't have time to rest." Sui waved his hand. "If there's anything, use the magic communicator." After saying this, Sui left the manor and got into his magic sedan. He drove to the new administrative center that New Flyer had built in their territory. Sui directly found Kennard and had him list all the projects that New Flyer and the elves were cooperating on. "Sir Chairman, look, our company's main partner is the Nightsong Tribe. That includes the Nightsong Tribe's plastic processing factory that relies on our New Flyer sales channels to make sales, as well as the tire processing factory that we've built together, and the Nightsong Tribe provides some technical support. Other than this, there are many elves from a Nightsong Tribe that are working in our company's other factories, which can be considered a part of our cooperation." "What about the Moon Shadow Tribe?" Sui asked. "There's less cooperation with the Moon Shadow Tribe. It's mainly focused on the fertilizer processing factory. But the fertilizer sales have been increasing in the past 2 years, so if we're talking about the amount of money involved, it isn't worse than the cooperation between our company and the Nightsong Tribe. Then can you calculate the amount of money involved in our cooperation with the Nightsong Tribe and the Moon Shadow Tribe?" Sui asked. Kennard slightly knit his brows. "There isn't any specific data, but according to last month's financial report, the amount of money involved in the Nightsong Tribe and the Moon Shadow Tribe should be close to 500,000 gold coins. Our company has earned around 100,000 gold coins from these projects. Then the Nightsong Tribe and the Moon Shadow Tribe have earned around 100,000 gold coins from this. According to the agreement we signed, it should be a bit more than us, around 150 to 200,000 gold coins." Hearing this answer, Sui's expression became a bit strange. The Nightsong Tribe and the Moon Shadow Tribe earned less than 200,000 gold coins from their cooperation with the New Flyer, but was enough for Elder Lucia and Elder Lysania to put aside their pride as elves and take the initiative to help Sui increase his magic power. They even wanted him to marry an elven girl. Looking at it this way, the elves weren't as arrogant as the legends said. If the two elven tribes earned a bit more, then wouldn't it be possible for the elves to work for him? Chapter 563. After being rejected by Su-yi, Elder Lucia and Elder Lysania did not mention this matter again for a while. Rather, they focused on helping Su-yi grasp the special meditation method of the elves. After a month of careful teaching, Su-yi finally grasped this special meditation method that was very different from human magicians. The elves had always been the teachers of magic to humans. Even though the elves had been on the decline for thousands of years, they had always been far ahead of humans in terms of magic research. Coupled with their tens of thousands of years of accumulation, the elves had many unique and outstanding aspects of magic. This special meditation method was one of them. After grasping the special meditation method of the elves, Su-yi experimented with this meditation method. He could clearly find that his mana recovery and increased speed were much faster than before. Although part of this was due to the two elders working together to cleanse his body several times to adjust to the flow of mana, this special meditation method was without a doubt the biggest contribution. If it was based on the previous speed, Su-yi's mana would increase steadily. When he was over 40 years old, his mana would be strong enough to control spatial magic, and he would be considered a true great magician. But with this meditation method, Su-yi's mana increase speed had greatly increased, and he could at least save half the time. If it was even more optimistic, Su-yi could even reach the level of a great magician by the age of 35. As for the study of magic, that would depend on Su-yi's own comprehension. However, this problem was the one that gave Su-yi the biggest headache. It was also the problem that great magician Camilla and the two elders were helpless against. Su-yi always placed the most importance on the development of the new flyer and the magic machine industry. His interest in magic could only be ranked second, so he could never fully immerse himself in the study of magic like other magicians. So naturally, he couldn't increase his speed to the limit. The only consolation was that Su-yi's talent was indeed outstanding and his understanding of magic far surpassed normal magicians. Generally speaking, as long as his magic power could keep up, there was no magic that he could not master. So in the end, he still had to wait for his magic power to reach the level of a great magician before he could truly attack the realm of a great magician. However, there was no shortcut to the accumulation of mana. Even though Su-yi had mastered the special meditation method of the elves and greatly increased the speed of his mana growth, he still had to meditate day by day and accumulate mana bit by bit until that day came. Regarding this, whether it was great magician Camilla or the two elders, they couldn't do anything. So when Su-yi truly grasped the special meditation method of the elves, the two elders left and returned to their own tribes. Before leaving, they still didn't propose marriage to Su-yi again, which made Su-yi think that they had really given up on the idea. In order to increase his magic power, Su-yi had wasted close to 2 months. When the two elders left, and he returned to normal from his wild magic research, he found that there was a pile of things that he needed to take care of. In the middle of August, when the weather was at its hottest, Su-yi appeared in the production base of several companies on the Black Rice Wasteland. Actually, it wasn't accurate to call this place a production base because since the new flyer left Bana City and the Lampari Kingdom, the other companies of Bana City all moved here. This production base that was less than 20,000 square meters had expanded by several times. Now, there were countless large and small factories in this area, as well as a large residential area built by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. There were many kinds of shops scattered all over this area that formed a living area. Then there were the training grounds for the guards of the various companies, the management center of the base, and other special facilities added together. This entire area was close to 10 square kilometers, which was comparable to a medium-sized city in the Lampari Kingdom. Because of the various companies and factories in this area, there were many people here. This level of prosperity could even compare to the previous Bana City. The Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce's Chairman Cruz had proposed to develop this place into a new city. They would build walls around it and set up defenses like a city, stopping the harassment of blind beastmen. But this proposal was rejected by Sue-yi. The main reason was that this was a business area created by the various companies, so it didn't have the foundation to become a normal city. Without leadership, even if most companies respected Sue-yi and the new flyer's opinions, it was hard to unite everyone. Secondly, Sue-yi didn't want to turn this place into a traditional city on the signs. He wanted to turn this place into a free trade center, while also becoming the center of the magic machine industry in the signs. The Black Rice Wasteland was a rare place on the signs where there was no government because of the Beastmen, so it was very suitable to create a new order here. Sue-yi had this ambition, and the new flyer also had this strength. So from the beginning, Sue-yi and the new flyer had been promoting this concept to everyone. This place was a free city, a city of commerce. Of course, even if this place couldn't be considered a traditional city, it could still be called a city. Because of their laziness, this place was named Black Rice City. Black Rice City didn't have a castellan's mansion or city guards. Basically, all the big and small matters were decided by the commerce union formed by the various companies in Black Rice City. New Flyer was one of the permanent directors of the commerce union. As the president of New Flyer, Sue-yi had a very high position in the commerce union and had a very strong influence in the entire Black Rice City. Even William Lantis, the commander of the Lampari Kingdom's Western Army who controlled more than 30,000 soldiers of the Lampari Kingdom, would be very warm and polite whenever he saw Sue-yi. He didn't show any of the arrogance that he had when meeting other businessmen. "Chairman Sue, I've been waiting for you for more than a month. I didn't expect you to only appear today," William Lantis said with a sad face. Sue-yi laughed. "I'm sorry, Commander Lantis. I've been busy with a very important matter recently, so I really couldn't take the time out. However, Kennard said that he had a very good time with you, so I don't have to worry too much." Of course. Commander Lantis nodded. "I invited Chairman Sue here because I have something to ask of you. I should be the one worrying." Sue-yi smiled and shook his head. "Commander Lantis, you're exaggerating. Kennard has already told me in detail about your request. He also told me many other details. In principle, I don't have a reason to object because this is just a normal transaction. You want to buy the military magic machines from our company, and we want to sell them at the same time. This is very normal." However, Commander Lantis didn't say anything. He just stared at Sue-yi and waited for him to continue. Seeing that Commander Lantis didn't take the initiative to mention it, Sue-yi coughed softly and continued. "However, Commander Lantis, are you sure that this transaction won't be interfered with by the Lampari Kingdom's military? Commander Lantis, you may not know this, but I'm actually still an advisor to the Lampari Kingdom's military, so I'm very clear about some taboos." Commander Lantis smiled. "Kennard has already mentioned this to me several times, and I've always told him not to worry about it. Now that Chairman Sue has asked me again, I'll still give the same answer. Chairman Sue, you don't have to worry about anything. I guarantee on my reputation that the military will definitely not interfere with this transaction." "All right, since Commander Lantis has already guaranteed on your reputation, of course, I believe you." Sue-yi nodded. "Then let's move on to the next question. Commander Lantis, to put it bluntly, I'm sure that the Western City Army won't be able to fork out that much money. Then how do you plan on paying our Chamber of Commerce the gold coins needed to purchase those military magic machines?" Commander Lantis clearly already knew that Sue-yi would ask this question, so he just smiled after hearing the question. Then he waved at Sue-yi and led him to a side hall next to the living room. The furnishings in the side hall were very simple, but there was a large map hanging on the wall facing the door. It almost took up the entire wall. Lieutenant Commander Lantis walked to the side of the map, picked up a wooden stick, and pointed it at the top of the map. "Chairman Sue, do you see the mark here? This is an iron mine," Commander Lantis said. Sue-yi looked at the red dot on the map on the wooden stick and gave a slight nod. Commander Lantis moved the stick a little and pointed it at another red dot. "Do you see the mark here? This is also an iron mine." Sue-yi nodded again, but he was a bit confused. Commander Lantis pointed a few more times on the map, pointing out several iron mines, several magic crystal mines, and 2 non-ferrous metal mines. "Chairman Sue, do you think these mines are enough to pay for the military magic machines?" Commander Lantis asked. He was stunned. He looked at the marks on the map that Commander Lantis had pointed out and asked in a surprised voice, "Sir Commander, if I'm not wrong, the mines you mentioned are all in the Sac Kingdom, right?" Commander Lantis revealed a dangerous smile. "It's because they're in the Sac Kingdom that it's good. If they were in our Lampari Kingdom, I wouldn't be able to use them to make a price." He instantly understood Commander Lantis' true intentions from his words, and his eyes couldn't help narrowing. This Sir Commander really was crazy. Chapter 564. Commander Lantis' plan was just as He had guessed. He wanted to cooperate with the New Flyer and obtain the military magic machines from New Flyer. Then he would invade the Sac Kingdom and take some land from the Sac Kingdom. He would give the mineral resources of that land to New Flyer as compensation for buying the military magic machines. This idea was clearly too crazy. First, the Sac Kingdom was stronger than the Lampari Kingdom. In the several hundred years of history, the Sac Kingdom had always suppressed the Lampari Kingdom, and the Lampari Kingdom could only barely resist being invaded by the Sac Kingdom. In this situation, Commander Lantis was telling that he wanted to use the mineral resources of the Sac Kingdom as payment. This was simply more laughable than drawing a cake to satisfy one's hunger. If the Sac Kingdom's land was that easy to invade, how could the Lampari Kingdom have been bullied by the Sac Kingdom for all these years? Second, even if the two countries were similar in strength, with the Western Army being supported by the military magic machines from New Flyer, they did have the strength to invade the Sac Kingdom and take a large piece of land from the Sac Kingdom. However, the Western Army's actions were without a doubt a great taboo. The Lampari Kingdom's army headquarters might allow the Western Army to buy the military magic machine from New Flyer to increase their battle strength, but the army headquarters definitely wouldn't allow the Western Army to invade the Sac Kingdom on their own. This was because this was equal to starting a war between the two countries. The Lampari Kingdom wasn't stable right now, and it was very likely that civil war would break out. Whether it was the army headquarters or the high-level members of the kingdom, they definitely weren't willing to take the initiative to provoke the Lampari Kingdom. Other than these two main problems, there was a very real and important problem. It was that with New Flyer's current production capacity, it couldn't meet the demands of the Western Army at all. Although the Frestek Chamber of Commerce had been researching military magic machines for close to 3 years, because of the resistance in Suyi's heart, they didn't invest that much. It wasn't until the Frestek Chamber of Commerce moved to the Stantine Duchy that they were forced to invest in military magic machines and gradually increase their production scale. With the Frestek Chamber of Commerce's current production capacity, other than being able to satisfy the needs of the guards of the other companies, they couldn't even satisfy the orders of the Stantine Duchy's lords for military magic machines. How could they have the spare capacity to satisfy the demand of the 30,000 soldiers of the Western Army? Besides, even if all these problems didn't exist and New Flyer could produce enough military magic machines to fully equip the Western Army, would the Western Army really be able to successfully complete this plan? Or rather, would Commander Lantis really fully implement this plan? He was very skeptical. After listening to Commander Lantis enthusiastically describe his grand plan, he pondered for a while and slowly shook his head. He couldn't directly say the other things he was worried about, so he focused on the Frestek Chamber of Commerce's lack of production. They couldn't meet the demands of the Western Army, which meant that the Frestek Chamber of Commerce couldn't take on such a large order. Commander Lantis smiled and said, "That's fine. I didn't think that I could equip the 30,000 soldiers of the Western Army in one go. As long as we do it bit by bit, we will be able to equip them all." He forced a smile. According to the standards of the New Flyer Guards, to equip a single soldier, it would cost at least 100 gold coins. This didn't include the magic trebuchets, magic bazookas, magic armored vehicles, and other military magic machines. If they were to equip the entire Western Army with this standard, it would cost at least 10 million gold coins. Adding in the normal training costs, it would cost several 100,000 gold coins a year, or even more. This kind of large consumption, not to mention New Flyer, even the entire Lampari Kingdom wouldn't be able to support it. Then again, if New Flyer could really take out this much money, Why didn't they invest it in their own company's guards and throw it in the Western Army that wasn't related to them? He had already closed the door to this cooperation in his heart. But seeing Commander Lantis' expectant and passionate eyes, while also worrying about the influence the Western Army had on the Black Rice Wasteland, he didn't immediately reject him. He seriously thought for a bit before speaking. Lord Commander, how about this? Since you don't want to equip the Western Army in one go, and our new flyer doesn't have the ability to do this, how about we extend our cooperation and divide it into batches, solving it bit by bit? What do you think about this? The first batch, our company will have the Western Army provided. Hashtag, 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 after leaving the Western Army camp and getting into the Magic Sedan, he started the Magic Sedan and drove out of the camp. The smile on his face immediately disappeared, and he gave a bitter laugh. According to his discussion with Commander Lantis, New Flyer would provide the Western Army with 500 magic repeating crossbows, 10 medium magic trebuchets, 1,000 sets of weapons and armor, 100 individual magic bazookas, and 5 magic armored vehicles in the next month. The total value of these items was close to 200,000 gold coins, and the price that the Western Army had to pay was only 2 promises from Commander Lantis. Commander Lantis promised that New Flyer would receive the full support of the Western Army in the future. No matter what New Flyer wanted to do on the Black Rice Wasteland, they would receive the help of the Western Army. Even if New Flyer wanted to do something in the Principality of Constantine, the Western Army would also support them. At the same time, if the Western Army could smoothly attack the Sack Kingdom, Commander Lantis would follow the plan and give all the mineral resources of the captured territory to New Flyer. He treated the latter promise about the Sack Kingdom as if it didn't exist. Rather, he was satisfied with the first promise. With the support of the Western Army, New Flyer would have the absolute right to speak on the Black Rice Wasteland. This would be very beneficial for New Flyer's development plan on the Black Rice Wasteland. The situation in the Principality of Constantine was even more chaotic, so if they could obtain the support of the Western Army, it would greatly increase the safety of New Flyer and Su Yi's new territory. To put it bluntly, these close to 200,000 gold coins worth of military magic machines were equal to the protection fee that New Flyer gave to the Western Army. Although it was a bit expensive, it was very practical. Of course, he wasn't satisfied with this situation. He hoped that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce wouldn't be affected by anyone or any power and could smoothly develop. But New Flyer wasn't strong enough right now, so there were many times when they had a compromise. This kind of compromise wasn't just in the military, it was also common in the business world. After leaving the Western Army camp, He drove his magic sedan back to Black Rice City. Without resting at all, he gathered the representatives of the various companies of Black Rice City to hold a Black Rice City Business Union conference. At this conference, there was only one topic, which was clear standards. When the other companies were still in Banna City, because of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's undisputed leading position, all the standard for the magic machine industry were set by the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. The other companies could only follow these standards. But after the situation changed and New Flyer left the Lampari Kingdom, the Magic Machine Industry Management Department that controlled all the magic machine industry in the Lampari Kingdom had set a new standard that was completely different from New Flyer. Whether it was the magic machines produced in the Lampari Kingdom or produced in other places, they had to follow this standard when transporting magic machines to the Lampari Kingdom. Otherwise, they wouldn't be approved for sale. Not mentioning the effects of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department on the Lampari Kingdom, it also had a large effect on the various companies that produced magic machines on the Black Rice Wasteland. Although most of these companies had withdrawn from the Lampari Kingdom, for many companies, their main market was still the Lampari Kingdom. The people they sold their magic machines to were still the citizens of the Lampari Kingdom. Now that the Lampari Kingdom's Magic Machine Industry Management Department had set a new standard, it forced these companies to either follow this standard or give up on the market that had been developed by New Flyer in the Lampari Kingdom. However, it wasn't easy to completely change the standards. For many chambers of commerce, this was equivalent to completely overturning the previous foundation. For many chambers of commerce that weren't particularly strong, This was tantamount to a disaster. But if they didn't change the standard, they would lose the main market in the Lampari Kingdom, which was a dead end for these companies. The helpless companies could only look to the Frestec Chamber of Commerce for help. If New Flyer was willing to follow the rules of the Lampari Kingdom's Magic Machine Industry Management Department and help these companies that weren't that strong change their production lines, they could survive this crisis. However, Sue-yi only had one evaluation for their thoughts. Idiots! Sue-yi had never revealed such a cold expression in front of these people, and his tone was rarely this serious. Do you really think that as long as you change the standard, those fellows will let you go? Could it be that you didn't understand what happened in Bandit City? Those greedy fellows want to chase everyone else out of the Lampari Kingdom. The representatives of the companies sitting in the conference room looked at each other with helpless expressions. Chairman Sue, actually we also understand this, but there's no other way. That's right, Chairman Sue, changing the standard isn't that hard for your New Flyer. As long as you make some adjustments to the magic machines, I feel that you should be able to meet the requirements of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department. How is that? Seeing these people still holding on to hope, Sue-yi gave a cold laugh and shook his head. No, your understanding of the standard is too shallow. Let me tell you, the competition for the standard is actually a life and death struggle. Once we follow the new standard of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department, we will all be played in the palm of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department. Even our New Flyer can't resist. Do you think that your company is stronger than us? Everyone was silent. After a while, a company representative asked Sue-yi, then, Chairman Sue, do you have a way to solve this? Seeing everyone's hopeful gazes, Sue-yi replied with a smile, it's very simple. Since those fellows in the Lampari Kingdom don't want us to meddle in the Lampari Kingdom's market, we'll just give up on this market. How can we do that? 90% of our products are sold to the Lampari Kingdom. If we give up on this market, wouldn't we be waiting for death? That's right, we're the same. We're the same. Don't forget, at this time last year, other than our New Flyer, all the products of your companies were sold to the Lampari Kingdom. But now there's a portion that has been sold to other regions. Sue-yi revealed a smile filled with confidence. Believe me, giving up on the Lampari Kingdom's market will make you suffer for a while. But you can take this chance to welcome an even bigger market. Not long after, I'm certain that the Lampari Kingdom's market will open up to us again. Chapter 565. Guzhy. The magic fan let out an annoying sound, and the fan blades suddenly slowed down. After a while, it stopped with an ear-piercing sound of friction. Aunt Aileyman looked at the K-Deck brand magic fan on the table in disgust before raising her voice to shout behind her, Old man, this damn magic fan is broken again. Old man Kutch ran out of the back hall, covered in sweat. Seeing the magic fan on the table, he couldn't help cursing. This damn K-Deck brand magic fan. How many times has it broken this month? Aunt Aileyman gave a cold snort. I already told you that if you wanted to buy a magic fan, you had to buy the Shinfei brand magic fan, but you didn't listen. You bought this broken K-Deck brand magic fan, and it breaks after using it. Isn't it annoying? Old man Kutch angrily glared back at Aunt Aileyman. Didn't I already tell you? The Shinfei brand magic fan can't be bought at all right? It isn't like you don't know that it's very hard to buy the Shinfei brand household magic machines in the entire Lampari Kingdom. What do you want me to steal one for you? Even if you can't buy the Shinfei brand magic fan, you could buy a Rig brand magic fan. If that doesn't work, you could buy a Silban brand magic fan that's much better than this damn K-Deck brand magic fan. Why do you have to buy this broken thing? It was easy for people to be irritated in this hot weather, but now that Aunt Aileyman was speaking like this, Old man Kutch was even more irritated. He angrily waved his hand and loudly shouted, How many times do you want me to say this? Not to mention the Shinfei brand magic fan. Even the Rig brand and Silban brand magic fans can't be bought this year. Let me tell you, since last month, other than the K-Deck brand magic fan, you can't buy any other brand of magic fan. Aunt Aileyman was stunned. Then why did I see 2 Silban brand magic fans in the servants' room when I went to help Viscount Enrique's house last time? Nonsense. How can I compare to Viscount Enrique? They bought it from the 70 Chamber of Commerce. I don't have that connection. Then again, The Silo brand magic fan is 3 silver coins more expensive than the K-Deck brand magic fan. So of course I'll choose the cheaper one. What's the use of being cheap? Now that it's broken, these gold coins are basically wasted. Anti-Alien Man said angrily. How would I know that this damn K-Deck brand magic fan wouldn't last? Old Man Kutch waved his hand in annoyance. All right. Don't say anymore. I'll get it fixed right away. Damn, it costs 10 silver coins to fix it each time. Adding in the several dozen silver coins I spent this month, I should have bought the Silo brand magic fan back then. Anti-Alien Man gave a snort, but she didn't keep blaming Old Man Kutch. Rather, she scolded in a cold voice. That damn K-Deck Chamber of Commerce. They had to force the new flyer and the other companies away, causing us to be unable to find a suitable magic fan. Humph, I'll remember this. Even if I don't buy anything in the future, I definitely won't buy anything from the K-Deck Chamber of Commerce. Old Man Kutch shook his head. He thought that all the magic machines in the Lampari Kingdom were controlled by the 10 companies of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department, and the other companies' magic machines were of the same quality as the K-Deck Chamber of Commerce's magic fan. They were all equally bad. If one decided not to buy anything from the K-Deck Chamber of Commerce, it was better to make a decision and not buy any household magic machines. But once one got used to using household magic machines, if they suddenly stopped using them, it would be very hard for them to adapt, and they would feel that their lives were very inconvenient. It wasn't clear on the other cities of the Lampari Kingdom, but at least everyone in Bana City was already used to living a much more convenient life with household magic machines. If they were to return to their previous lives, there would be a large group of people who would feel very uncomfortable. However, thinking about it, since the new flyer left Bana City and even left the Lampari Kingdom, followed by a large group of companies that produced magic machines, the prosperity of Bana City had long disappeared. Although the people of Bana City could still find work to make ends meet, if they wanted to have a satisfying high income like before, that was just wishful thinking. Almost all the young people of Bana City chose to leave Bana City, heading to the Black Rice Wasteland, the Principality of Constantine, the Mirando Duchy, the Kingdom of Ruhr, and other places. They followed in the footsteps of the companies represented by the new flyer, continuing to pursue rich wages. There was no one who was willing to stay in Bana City and be exploited by the 10 companies of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department. The people who stayed in Bana City had a large drop in their income. How could they have enough money to buy household magic machines and live a comfortable life like before? But Anti-Alien Man, who never read the newspapers and didn't care about the Lampari Kingdom's matters, knew nothing about this. Old Man Kutch knew that it was no use talking to her about this, so he could only shake his head. He picked up the K-Deck brand magic fan on the table and left the house. When he went from Old Man Kutch's house to the K-Deck Chamber of Commerce's repair shop outside the city, he would pass by the 70 Chamber of Commerce's shop. Old Man Kutch had casually taken a few looks before and didn't pay much attention to it. But when he passed by this time, because Anti-Alien Man had mentioned the 70 Chamber of Commerce, he couldn't help taking a few more looks. Looking carefully, he found that the 70 Chamber of Commerce's shop had fewer products compared to when he passed by before. At a glance, the entire shop was empty. There were only a few dozen household magic machines scattered around, and even a few of the shop assistants were missing. Old Man Kutch stopped to look for a while before he couldn't take the curiosity in his heart and walked in. Seeing Old Man Kutch come in, although the clerks came forward to greet him, it was clear that the smiles on their faces were very forced and their attitudes weren't warm at all. It was like they weren't willing to receive customers at all. Old Man Kutch was even more surprised. He had heard many people say that the 70 Chamber of Commerce's service was very good. No matter what kind of customer they faced, they would always welcome them with the most warm smile. So why was it different today? Could it be that they were looking down on him? Old Man Kutch was a bit depressed. He looked around the empty shop and couldn't help asking the clerks, "Have you bought everything here? Why didn't you put more things here? How ugly would it look like this?" The two clerks looked at each other before one of them said with a sigh, "This place is about to close and won't be open for business, so we won't be bringing in any new goods. This customer, may I ask if you need anything to buy a new magic fan? We only have 2 Silban brand magic fans left, so if you're interested, we can give you a discount." Seeing the clerk's eyes fall onto the Kadek brand magic fan in his hand, Old Man Kutch suddenly felt a bit ashamed. He awkwardly pulled his hand back and hid the Kadek brand magic fan behind him. Then he remembered the clerk's reply and was surprised. This place is closing? Why? Isn't the business here very good? We don't know the specifics. We just received orders that this shop would be closing in a week. The clerk replied. Old Man Kutch suddenly felt a bit of anger. Could it be that this place was forced to close by those bastards from the Magic Machine Industry Management Department? Thinking about it, it felt wrong. This was Her Highness 70's shop. How could a Magic Machine Industry Management Department be bold enough to force Her Highness 70 to close? We're not clear on this. We're very sorry that we can't answer your question. The clerk was clearly well-trained, still maintaining a faint smile. This customer, do you want to buy the Sylvan brand magic fan? Old Man Kutch looked in the direction the clerk was pointing at and saw a Sylvan brand magic fan on a display stand. Seeing the magic fan's smooth and white plastic shell, as well as the silver glowing aluminum alloy protective cover that was clearly made with care, he looked down at the Kadek brand magic fan in his hand that had a rough surface that even had wires of different thicknesses. Old Man Kutch suddenly couldn't suppress the anger that filled his heart. After pausing, Old Man Kutch suddenly threw the Kadek brand magic fan in his hand onto the ground. Pong! Old Man Kutch used a lot of strength, and adding in the fact that the Kadek brand magic fan wasn't that good to begin with a single hit, it instantly shattered into parts, and even the fan blades turned into pieces. Looking over the messy things on the ground, Old Man Kutch still didn't vent his anger. He raised his foot to stomp on it a few times, until the Kadek brand magic fan couldn't be seen before he finally stopped. The two clerks were scared by Old Man Kutch's sudden actions. Seeing him stomp on the Kadek brand magic fan like it was an enemy, the two clerks were a bit confused. Why was this middle-aged man, who looked very honest on the outside, so angry? Moreover, his anger didn't come without reason. Who was he venting it on? It was a good thing Old Man Kutch didn't make any other moves. After he stopped, he said to the two stunned clerks in a deep voice, I want to buy a Sylvan brand magic fan. Wrap it up for me. Oh, please wait a minute. One of the clerks quickly ran to the warehouse in the back of the store. When he was halfway there, Old Man Kutch suddenly shouted, Wait a minute. The clerks turned around and looked at Old Man Kutch with a confused look. You just said that there are only 2 Sylvan brand magic fans left in your store? Nah. That's right. Other than these 2 Sylvan brand magic fans, are there any other brands of magic fans? The clerk looked at the Kadek brand magic fan that had already turned into a pile of broken pieces and shook his head. No, our store doesn't sell the Kadek brand magic fans. If you need one, please buy it from the Kadek Chamber of Commerce. Bullshit, Old Man Kutch angrily said. Even if I die, I won't buy a broken thing from the Kadek Chamber of Commerce. Wrap up the 2 Sylvan brand magic fans for me. I'll buy them both. The 2 clerks were stunned. Chapter 566. Your Highness, this is the final financial report of the store. Please take a look. 70 looked at the final financial report of the 70 Chamber of Commerce in the hands of the deacon and gave a sigh. After looking it over, she gave a bitter laugh. I never thought that in just a few months, we would earn several thousand gold coins. It's no wonder those people are thinking of ways to chase out New Flyer. The deacon was a bit confused as he looked at 70. Why did Her Highness mention the Frestek Chamber of Commerce when she saw this financial report? Could it be that it was like the rumors that Her Highness had a close relationship with the New Flyer's chairman, which was why she kept paying attention to New Flyer? Take out these several thousand gold coins and use it all to buy food. Then give it to the people in the villages outside Tag City. They suffered a flood a while ago, so these food should be able to help them pass this time. 70 said, Yes. The deacon nodded in response before praising with a smile. Your Highness really is benevolent. The people in those villages aren't citizens of our territory, and you're actually thinking about them. If the city lord of Tag City knew about this, he would definitely feel ashamed. Although they aren't citizens of my territory, they're citizens of the Lampari Kingdom. As the princess, I should care about them. 70 softly replied. But your majesty, the deacon paused before swallowing the words in his throat. Seveni looked at him with a warning in her eyes before waving her hand. "All right, you can take care of these matters." The deacon quickly gave a nod before leaving. Seeing the deacon leave, Seveni gave a sigh before revealing a bitter smile. Closing the Seveni Chamber of Commerce wasn't her intention. Seveni was planning on using her own efforts to make the Seveni Chamber of Commerce a window for the magic machine companies led by New Flyer to keep in contact with the Lampari Kingdom, maintaining this relationship. But some time ago, Eric took the initiative to summon her and had a long talk with her. During their talk, Eric clearly told Seveni that he hoped that she wouldn't rashly interfere with the kingdom's internal affairs because it would make it hard for him as the king. Although Seveni proposed that the Magic Machine Industry Management Department would work with the 10 companies that represented the interests of the nobles of the kingdom, pushing out New Flyer and the other companies, creating a very bad influence on the Lampari Kingdom. She was doing this to recover some losses. But Eric didn't support Seveni's idea. He said that the Magic Machine Industry Management Department's actions had the support of the kingdom's conservative nobles, so this situation was already irreversible. Even he as the king couldn't change it, not to mention Seveni, who didn't have any real power. But Eric also said that he was very clear on the current situation in the kingdom, and he was working hard to control it. Eric hinted to Seveni that he was taking back his power bit by bit from the nobles led by Duke Stag, trying to control the Lampari Kingdom. So he hoped that Seveni wouldn't make any moves during this time to avoid messing up his plans. Although Seveni didn't completely agree with Eric's idea, thinking that Eric was sitting on the throne and she was Eric's blood-related little sister, she should support him, so she was convinced by Eric in the end. After that, Seveni stopped all the business of the Seveni Chamber of Commerce and gradually closed all the shops of the Seveni Chamber of Commerce in the Lampari Kingdom. At the same time, she gradually gave the factories under her name to the 10 companies of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department. Up to this point, Seveni's efforts through the Seveni Chamber of Commerce had all been for naught. Compared to before the Seveni Chamber of Commerce was established, the Lampari Kingdom was now firmly controlled by the 10 companies, or rather the large nobles. To Seveni, the situation in the kingdom would only get worse. This naturally filled Seveni's heart with frustration. She wanted to use her own power to change the situation of the kingdom, but she never thought that she would stop halfway when she had just started. Thinking of how Sue called her naive before, Seveni couldn't help revealing a bitter smile. I hope that Eric can smoothly carry out his plan and take back control of the kingdom step by step. Seveni gave a sigh and shook her head, throwing this problem to the side. Because the Seveni Chamber of Commerce was closing, many of the refugees that Seveni had arranged to work for the Seveni Chamber of Commerce needed a new place to go. Of course, Seveni wouldn't send them back to their original territories and let them continue being exploited by the lords. But letting them stay in their territories would go against the rules of the nobles. It would be easy for the royal family to be blamed, and Eric would be in a passive position. So after Seveni thought about it, she found that she could only ask Sue for help again. It was a good thing that Sue agreed to all of Seveni's requests. After receiving Seveni's request, he didn't say anything else and agreed to help her arrange for these refugees. Adding in the refugees that came to Seveni's territory during this time, there were over 2,000 refugees that came to Seveni's territory from other places. Even if it was the New Flyer, it would be hard to take in all these people. Sue had to work with several other companies on the Black Rice Wasteland to take in all these refugees. But most of these refugees had worked in the magic machine factories of the nobles before, so they had a certain level of skill. It was quite easy for them to integrate into these companies. The problem Seveni had to consider now was how to give these refugees a suitable identity. Although many refugees had their entire families in exile, there were still some refugees who had family and friends back home. They might return to the Lampari Kingdom in the future, so if they were all sent out now, they would lose their legal status in the Lampari Kingdom when they came back. This problem wasn't too hard for Seveni. With her status, it wasn't a problem for her to ask for some legal status from the kingdom's parliament. The only problem was that there were too many of them. When she was considering if she should divide them into several batches to solve this problem, the door that the deacon had closed was suddenly pushed open. 70 looked up in surprise, but she found that the deacon had come back with another person. This person didn't seem to have any strength and could barely stand up with the help of the deacon. His clothes were in a mess, and his hair was in a mess, looking no different from the refugees that came to 70's territory. But if one looked seriously, one could see that this person was different from the refugees. This person's clothes were messy and tattered, but it was clearly made of high-grade fabric. The workmanship was very fine, and the style was very new, so it was impossible for a normal refugee to wear clothes like this. Moreover, he had a slender figure. Although most of his exposed skin was covered by dust and blood, one could still see that his skin was very fair and tender. No matter how one looked at him, he was completely different from those refugees who were used to doing rough work and had sturdy bodies and rough skin. "Your Highness," the deacon called out to 70 and prepared to help her sit down in a seat on the side. 70 was curious who this person was and why the deacon was so familiar with him, bringing him here. That person seemed to have heard the deacon's voice and suddenly looked up. His eyes met 70's, and 70 revealed a surprised look. That person didn't know where his strength came from, but he broke free of the deacon's support and charged in front of 70. He kneeled down and hugged 70's leg as he loudly cried out, "Your Highness, save me, save me. Our entire family was killed by those damn fellows. I was almost killed. Save me." 70 was surprised and quickly helped him up. She looked at his dirty face that was covered in dirt, but now it was covered in tears. She confirmed that she hadn't seen wrong. This person was indeed Manager Dima's youngest son, Jiawen. Because Manager Dima had been serving Lampuri 13th since 70 was young, and his youngest son Jiawen was around the same age as 70. The two of them had been playmates since they were young. 70 and Jiawen were quite familiar with each other. Even if the two of them grew up and their relationship faded because of the difference in status, they still met often. At Manager Dima's funeral last year, 70 had personally attended it and chatted with Jiawen for a bit, comforting him to live well. Although Jiawen was a bit depressed because his father had just passed away, he still had the image of a noble young master. But she never thought that after a year, he would become this down and out. What surprised 70 even more was what he said. "What did you say? Your entire family was killed?" 70 looked at Jiawen in shock. "You're talking about being killed? Who would have the guts to kill your entire family?" Jiawen shook his head in a trembling voice. I don't know. I was sleeping well, but I was suddenly woken up. Then I saw a group of people charge into my house and kill my family. I was forced into a secret passage by a servant to hide." Seeing that Jiawen wasn't clear, 70 couldn't help knitting her brows. "You don't have a clue at all?" Jiawen shook his head in a daze. I don't know anything." "No, there should be a clue inside. Father told me before he died that if something happened to the family, I should find you and give these things to you." Carwin fumbled in his pocket and found a small package wrapped in thick craft paper. The craft paper was covered in sweat and blood, looking very dirty, but 70 didn't hesitate at all as she took it from Jiawen's hands. Manager Dima actually said these words to Jiawen's family before he died. There must be something strange about this. Opening the craft paper, she found that there was a sealed letter, a small booklet, and a small bottle. The bottle was half filled with an unknown purple liquid. 70 looked at the small bottle and couldn't see anything, so she put it to the side. After thinking about it, she opened the seal of the letter. When she opened the letter, 70's eyes suddenly narrowed. Chapter 567. "Your Highness, when you see this letter, I think I will already be suffering eternal torture in the depths of hell. You don't need to be curious about why this is, because when I decided to help Duke Stag kill His Majesty, this was my destiny. I don't plan on asking for your forgiveness, and I don't have the right to. I left this letter in hopes that the truth won't be covered up and you won't be deceived anymore. The reason why I chose to reveal the truth at this time is because at this time, my most cherished family might have already met with misfortune. I was willing to work with Duke Stag and His Highness Eric to kill His Majesty because they threatened me with the lives of my family. Now that my family is gone, this threat is already useless. I'm a shameful coward. For the sake of my family, I agreed to this sinful bargain with them. Even if I knew in my heart that even if I did this in order to cover up the truth, they would still kill my family in the end. Your Highness, you must be very angry. I understand your anger because my sins can't be forgiven. I have served His Majesty since I was young, and His Majesty has always been good to me. I should have repaid His Majesty with the highest loyalty, but I betrayed him at the last moment and even personally sent a fatal poison into his mouth. When I saw His Majesty drink that bowl of deadly potion, I was already dead. Not long after His Majesty died, I chose to commit suicide. Perhaps many people saw this as proof of my loyalty, but it wasn't. It was just a way to escape. I couldn't take the strong guilt in my heart. I couldn't take being watched by His Majesty every night when I slept. So I chose to escape and finally chose to commit suicide. Your Highness, if you see this letter, it means that my premonition is true and my family has already been cleansed, but also means that I am lucky. I should have a family that survived and sent this letter to you. I don't hope for your forgiveness, but for the sake of the gods, I ask you to forgive my only remaining family. He is my family's only hope. I ask you to be merciful and forgive him. My family doesn't know anything about what I've done, and they should have paid a sufficient price. As for me, let me suffer eternal torment in the deepest part of hell, because my sins will never be cleansed. After reading the final sentence, Seveni's hand holding the letter couldn't help trembling. Anger, surprise, uneasiness, grievance, panic. All kinds of emotions that normally would rarely appear in Seveni suddenly attacked her. Her mind went blank, and she lost the ability to think. So Father didn't die of illness. Father was actually poisoned and killed by Dima's butler. The one who killed Royal Father was Duke Stag, and Eric was involved. The blood in Seveni's face faded, and her white skin turned pale, looking very shocking. After a while, the white suddenly turned red, and Seveni's body suddenly trembled. Her lips opened, and a trace of blood came from the corner of her mouth. Seeing Seveni's reaction, the deacon and Jarvan on the side were shocked. "Your Highness, what's wrong? Are you all right?" Seeing that the deacon was about to come over to support her, Seveni quickly put away the letter in her hand and raised her hand to stop him from approaching. After taking a deep breath, Seveni's face slowly recovered from its stupefied state, and her eyes became as calm as usual. But if one looked closely, they would find that her expression and eyes didn't have the normal warmth. Rather, there was a bone-chilling chill. Seveni looked at Jia when before looking at the letter in her hand. After taking a deep breath, she folded the letter and put it away. She took out a handkerchief to wipe the blood from the corner of her mouth before opening the small book. This booklet was actually a diary of Dima's manager. This diary started 3 months before Lampuri 13th died and ended on the last day of manager Dima's death. Based on this diary, it could be seen that Lampuri 13th had been seriously ill for several months, and his body condition had quickly declined. In the beginning of the diary, Manager Dima's tone was filled with worry and sadness. Around half a month before Lampuri 13th died, the tone of the diary became panicked, and it began to record the contact between Duke Stag and Manager Dima. A few days before Lampuri 13th died, the diary began to record the changes in Lampuri 13th's body each day and Manager Dima's hesitation. After several days, when Lampuri 13th passed away, Manager Dima left a long diary that clearly recorded the circumstances of Lampuri 13th's death. He described how Duke Stag had forced him and how he had poisoned Lampuri 13th. In this diary, there is also mention of the small bottle left in the package. According to the description, the small bottle contained the poison that killed Lampuri 13th. After this, Manager Dima's diary clearly showed his will to die. The diary only recorded how he arranged for his family and his funeral. In the diary, Manager Dima said that he was clear that even if he didn't commit suicide, His Highness Eric and Duke Stag would kill him to silence him. When he chose to commit suicide, other than wanting to escape from the endless guilt, it was also for the sake of his family. However, At the end of the diary, he also stated that Duke Stagg and His Highness Eric would take care of his family for insurance, making it easier to hide the truth of the matter. 70 roughly flipped through the notebook, but because she had seen the letter before, she wasn't that shocked. But when she saw the part where Lampuri 13th was poisoned to death, 70 couldn't help trembling. After reading it all, 70 thought for a while in a daze before carefully putting away the diary and the small bottle. Her eyes fell onto Carwin. "Your Highness," seeing the complicated look in 70's eyes, Carwin couldn't help trembling as he felt a bit of worry. His father's letter must have recorded a shocking secret. Otherwise, Her Highness 70 wouldn't have spat out blood. It was a good thing that 70 looked at Carwin with a complicated gaze for a while, but she didn't say anything else. She turned to the deacon and said, "Take Carwin away to rest. Also, seal off the news of Carwin coming here. Don't let anyone know. Do you understand what I mean?" The deacon gave a deep nod. "Yes. Go." When the deacon and Carwin left, and there was only one person left in the room, 70 suddenly trembled and quickly covered her mouth with a handkerchief. When she let go, the handkerchief was already covered in a dazzling blood-red color. Seeing this shocking mass of blood, 70 finally revealed a look of endless sadness. She muttered in a low voice, "Eric, are you this cruel?" A pure black magic sedan was quickly driving on the road, leading to the Kingdom of Roer's capital, Caracas City. This road had been built by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce 3 years ago and had been expanded last year. Now, it was a large road that was 20 meters wide, which was the largest road in the Kingdom of Roer. This road went to the border between the Lampari Kingdom and the Kingdom of Roer to the north, and went to the Kingdom of Roer's largest port city, Misty City, to the south. It passed through Caracas City on the way and connected the Kingdom of Roer to the north and south. Based on the horse carriages and the magic cars that passed through this road, it could be seen that this road was definitely the busiest road in the Kingdom of Roer. Facts were indeed like this. The Kingdom of Roer had officially made this Rulin Road the most important road in the Kingdom of Roer. There were relay stations set up along the way, and not only did they provide accommodation for travelers, they even had a small group of soldiers stationed at each relay station who were responsible for guarding the entire road. Of course, there were advantages and disadvantages to this. The advantage was that this road connected the north and south of the Kingdom of Roer. With this road, the Kingdom of Roer had developed quite a bit. The disadvantage was that the Kingdom of Roer was a bit too reliant on this road. All the development was concentrated in the areas connected by this road, so the development of the other parts of the kingdom wasn't as good. But this situation would greatly improve in the next few years. The Kingdom of Roer had already signed a new agreement with the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. In the next 5 years, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce would build 3 more large roads across the Kingdom of Roer. Not only would they connect the north and south, they would also connect the east and west. Other than this, they also needed to build several secondary roads that would connect the 4 main roads. The final goal was to spread the roads across the Kingdom of Roer, trying to catch up to the current road level of the Lampari Kingdom in 5 years. The Kingdom of Roer might have forgotten an important problem. Kennard, sitting in the back of the magic sedan, looked at the horse carriages on the Rulin Road before shaking his head at Sue beside him. "It's no use just having roads. The most important thing is to have suitable means of transportation. Other than building large amounts of roads, the Kingdom of Roer might need to buy some magic cars from our company." Sue revealed a faint smile. "Kennard, do you want to make a bet?" Chapter 568. Kennard was surprised. "What bet?" "Bet that the Kingdom of Roer will place an order for magic cars from our company." Sue pointed at a medium transport magic car that they had just passed on the road. "I'm only talking about this kind of transport magic car. It doesn't include the magic sedan that we're sitting in." Kennard knit his brows. After thinking about it, he shook his head with a smile. "No, I won't bet with you. I've thought it through. The Kingdom of Roer won't keep ordering magic cars from us. Rather, they will propose to build a magic car factory with us." Sue laughed and gave a nod of praise to Kennard. "Look, you can think of this, so of course the Kingdom of Roer can think of this. Compared to buying magic cars from our company, it's clear that it's more beneficial for them to build a magic car factory with us and learn how to make magic cars from us. Then, Sir Chairman, are you planning on agreeing? Kennard asked this before revealing a smile. No, I shouldn't have asked this question. Sir President, you will definitely agree, because that's what you've always done. No, you're wrong. I won't agree this time. He slowly shook his head. Kennard was surprised again. Why? Sir Chairman, didn't you always want more people to participate in developing magic machines and have more people join the magic machine industry? Could it be that you've changed your mind? My thoughts haven't changed, but the magic cars are very different from the magic machines of our company. He said. What's the difference? Kennard asked in a confused voice. The difference is in the technology. He said. The reason why I was willing to transfer the household magic machine technology so easily, other than for my dream, was because the technology content of those household magic machines is quite low. With the help of our company, the other companies can easily grasp the technology to make those household magic machines. Kennard was silent for a bit before asking, that means you're not willing to transfer the magic car technology because you think they can't grasp it? Yes. He nodded. You should know that the technology of the magic car far surpasses that of the normal household magic machines. Making a magic car isn't a simple process. Rather, it requires several precise steps. This is an entire engineering system. It is not something that can be easily grasped. Kennard thought for a bit before slowly nodding. It's no wonder you're not willing to transfer the production magic machine technology to the other companies. Perhaps it's because you think they can't grasp it at all. The production magic machines are a bit different from the magic cars. Before there was a standardized production system, the production magic machines depended on the proficiency of the workers. In this aspect, other than the dwarves of our company, there aren't many workers who can reach this level. Weren't there several companies that tried to copy the production magic machines before? But you've already seen the results. Kennard revealed a bitter smile. That's right, those companies are overestimating their capabilities. The production magic machines they made couldn't be used at all, and they even blamed our company for not being willing to reveal the technology, causing them to suffer losses. He gave a shrug. I hope that the Kingdom of Ruhr doesn't know what's good for them. Actually, I'm very sincere. Other than discussing the two things I made before, I also hope that I can help them establish a basic magic machine industry. As long as they're willing to follow the plan, in just a few years, they can also make their own magic cars. Kennard paused, wanting to say something, but then hesitating. He didn't have high hopes for Sui. Although the Kingdom of Ruhr was more open than the Lampari Kingdom, supporting the development of the magic machine industry quite a bit, New Flyer was a foreign company to the Kingdom of Ruhr. The Kingdom of Ruhr could only give New Flyer limited trust. Even if Sui was sincere, the Kingdom of Ruhr wouldn't do what Sui wanted. But seeing the confident look on Suyi's face, Kennard was also filled with confidence. After being by Suyi's side for so long, he was often infected by Suyi's strong confidence. Now he was filled with confidence in everything he did and wouldn't give up easily. This change was praised by Kennard's father, Embark. He said that agreeing to let him work in New Flyer was a very correct decision. Thinking of his father, a figure suddenly appeared in Kennard's mind. Looking at Sui, Kennard hesitated a bit before pretending to casually say, Right, Sir Chairman, according to the schedule, you'll be making a trip to the Lampari Kingdom next month, right? The students from Baron Kurto Academy should be graduating this year. So, I have to check on the saplings I planted and see if they've grown to the point where they can be used. Mentioning Baron Kurto Academy, Sui couldn't help revealing a smile. His investment in Baron Kurto Academy was beginning to bear fruit. Now, there were many students from the magic department and other departments that wanted to work in New Flyer after graduation. Because these young people had received targeted training from New Flyer, they had a certain advantage compared to adult humans when it came to knowledge about magic machines. They represented hope for the future. Sui thought highly of them, so when this batch of students graduated, he would personally welcome them. I think they should satisfy you. Kennard also smiled and nodded. Then he hesitated a bit before asking. Then, Sir Chairman, after this, can you spare some time? Sui glanced at Kennard strangely. What? Is there something you need? This. Kennard's expression was a bit strange. Sophia is getting engaged next month. She hopes that you can attend her engagement ceremony. Sophia is getting engaged? Sui was greatly surprised. Isn't she less than 20 years old this year? Who's she getting engaged to? It's Thor, Marquis's youngest son, Kennard replied. 20 years old isn't young. It's already the age to get married. She can't wait forever, right? Seeing Kennard's deep expression, Sui shook his head and sighed. This is definitely not her idea. It's you who wants me to go, right? Kennard, do you really think it's a good idea for me to attend her engagement ceremony? Maybe it's not a good idea, but I think it's a consolation for Sophia. Maybe it can even give her a surprise, Kennard said expressionlessly. Sui glanced at him and shook his head with a bitter smile. Kennard, sometimes I sympathize with you nobles. You can't even decide your own marriage. It's really too painful. This is a responsibility that we have to bear, Kennard replied indifferently. Also, Sir Chairman, if you were willing to let it go back then, Sophia wouldn't have to go through such pain. I've said it very clearly before. I only want to have Steele as my only wife. There's no room for other girls. Even if I promised Sophia, she might not be happy with me. Sui shook his head, seeing that Kennard was about to continue. Sui raised his hand and interrupted him. Let's not talk about this anymore. I've been driven crazy by the two elven elders. To be honest, this time I came to the kingdom of Ruhr to avoid them. Kennard couldn't help but laugh. After the two elven elders left last time, they came back to the Principality of Constantine after more than a month. They found Sui, but each brought a few elven beauties and asked Sui to choose one of them as his partner. Although Sui clearly refused, the two elven elders didn't care about his opinion at all. They left the elven beauties behind and left after saying that they would wait for Sui's decision. The elven beauties were also very active, following Sui around all day. Although they weren't obsessed with him, they could be said to never leave his side. In the new flyer, Sui, who was always followed by 7 or 8 elven beauties, had become an extremely eye-catching sight. The two elven elders' request for Sui had also spread to everyone's ears. Almost everyone was extremely envious of Sui and felt that he was extremely lucky to be able to casually choose elven beauties as his partners. However, not many people understood that Sui was actually quite troubled by this. Although Kennard didn't understand why Sui insisted on having only one wife, he was very impressed with his perseverance and smiled without saying anything. However, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Sui wasn't moved by those beautiful elven beauties at all. It was no wonder that Sophia didn't make him waver at all. From the looks of it, Sophia probably had no chance at all. Kennard smiled bitterly and looked at the road ahead again. He saw a familiar huge signboard approaching from afar. This huge signboard was set up by New Flyer at the beginning of last year. It was about 10 kilometers away from Caracas City. Seeing this signboard meant that Caracas City was close by. Kennard had been to the Kingdom of Ruhr a few times due to his work, so he was very familiar with this signboard. Just as he was about to turn around and tell Sui, he noticed that Sui was staring at the road ahead with a surprised expression. Kennard turned around and saw a group of people standing outside the station not far from the signboard. It seemed like they were preparing to welcome someone. Kennard couldn't see clearly from afar, so he didn't understand why Sui was so surprised. Sui suddenly turned around and said to Kennard with a strange expression, "Isn't the Kingdom of Ruhr's sincerity a little too much?" Chapter 569. Kennard was a bit surprised at first why Sui would suddenly say this, but as the magic sedan approached the group, Kennard looked over and found that Newman was standing in the group. As the main contact person between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the New Flyer, whenever Kennard came to the Kingdom of Ruhr for a deal between the New Flyer and the Kingdom of Ruhr, Newman had been in charge of receiving him. This was Sui's first time coming, so naturally Newman was the one who received him. Before coming to the Kingdom of Ruhr, Kennard had contacted Newman ahead of time and Newman had said that he would come to welcome Sue-yi. But in this group of people, other than Newman, there were many high-level officials from the Kingdom of Ruhr. For example, the two people near Newman were the Kingdom of Ruhr's Agricultural and Business Department Chief, Wendell Witherspoon, that Newman had introduced to Kennard before, as well as the chairman of the Kingdom of Ruhr's Magic Machine Industry Development Committee, Barry Wesley. It had to be said that these two were important people in the Kingdom of Ruhr, but they were standing in the same position as Newman, standing in the middle of the group. They weren't the most inconspicuous, but they were far from being the most important. It could be seen that in this group, there were many people with higher statuses than Newman and these two. But this made it even more strange. Although New Flyer's magic machines were very popular in the Kingdom of Ruhr, New Flyer had received high praise from the Kingdom of Ruhr, and even received high praise from the king of the Kingdom of Ruhr. But no matter what, this welcoming lineup was a bit too exaggerated. It was no wonder Sue-yi found it strange. After looking at this group for a while, Kennard shook his head. "Sir Chairman, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. They shouldn't be here to welcome us." Sue-yi laughed before waving his hand. "I was just joking. Although our New Flyer isn't bad, we don't have that much face to have all these important people of the Kingdom of Ruhr come to welcome us." He looked at Newman in the crowd after saying this and said with a sigh, "It seems like Newman will be busy for a while. Let's go into the city first and contact him later." It seems like we can only do this." Kennard nodded and gestured for the driver to drive straight to Caracas City, which was starting to appear on the horizon. When they passed this group of people, the magic sedan couldn't help slowing down because there were too many people. Sue-yi and Kennard saw that Newman had something important to do, so they didn't want to disturb him. But they never thought that when the magic sedan passed by this group of people, Newman would suddenly look over and see Sue-yi and Kennard in the car. Newman was surprised before revealing a look of joy. He squeezed out of the crowd and rushed in front of the magic sedan, stopping it. "Chairman Sue, Kennard, why are you here now?" The window rolled down, and Newman looked at Sue-yi and Kennard before asking in a pleasantly surprised voice, "Didn't you say that you would be here the day after tomorrow?" Sue-yi looked at Kennard, and Kennard quickly replied, "Sir Chairman wanted to come a day early to inspect the environment of your Kingdom of Ruhr." "Oh, welcome, welcome." Newman revealed a warm smile and nodded. "Since Chairman Sue is here, you have to stay in our Kingdom of Ruhr for a while. Let me show you the good places of our Kingdom of Ruhr. You'll definitely be satisfied." "All right, I'm very much looking forward to it," Sue-yi replied with a smile. Compared to before, whenever Newman saw him, he was a bit too warm and even had a trace of flattery. The reason was very simple. Because of the New Flyer's investment in the Kingdom of Ruhr, it brought many jobs to the Kingdom of Ruhr and gave the Kingdom of Ruhr many benefits. Newman, who had introduced the New Flyer to the Kingdom of Ruhr, had received a good evaluation in the kingdom and had been promoted several times in the past 2 years. Although he was still the chairman of the Rudsun Chamber of Commerce, he had more power in his hands compared to before. Moreover, according to rumors, he had received the recognition of the king because of this merit. He might even be promoted to the vice minister of the Kingdom of Ruhr's Agricultural and Business Department. This position could be considered a high official in the Kingdom of Ruhr. If he could be promoted, it meant that Newman could finally step into the peak of the Kingdom of Ruhr. Newman, of course, knew why he had received this rare opportunity, so he was very warm towards the New Flyer. "Newman, who are they?" Newman wanted to say a few more words to Sue-yi, but there was a dignified voice that came from behind them. The three of them looked over and found that this person was the Kingdom of Ruhr's Agricultural and Business Department's director, Wendell Witherspoon, who had been standing with Newman. He could be casual with Newman, but in front of Chief Witherspoon, Sue-yi couldn't impolitely talk to him in the car. After getting out of the car, he revealed a smile to Chief Witherspoon and gave him a slight bow. Newman had already introduced Sue-yi to Director Witherspoon. Director Witherspoon looked at Sue-yi in surprise before slowly nodding and saying with a look of praise, "I've heard Newman say before that the New Flyer's chairman Sue is very young and promising, but I never thought that he would be this young. It really is shocking." Sue-yi revealed a faint smile. "Many thanks for Sir Director's praise. Our New Flyer's magic machine industry is a young industry, so it's normal for me, as the chairman, to be young." Director Witherspoon laughed. Chairman Su is really humorous. Are you saying that old men like us shouldn't interfere with the magic machine industry of young people like you? Of course I didn't mean that. Su, he shook his head with a smile. The development of the magic machine industry in the Kingdom of Ruhr is inseparable from Sir Director's support. Chairman Su, you don't have to be humble. Director Witherspoon sighed. In fact, ever since your new flyer came to the Kingdom of Ruhr to invest, it has led to the economic development of our kingdom and played an important role in alleviating the financial pressure of the kingdom. Last time, when His Majesty summoned me, he specifically talked to me about your new flyer. Oh, I didn't think that our little new flyer would be able to receive the attention of His Majesty. This is truly an honor. Su, he smiled. May I know what His Majesty and Director are talking about? Director Witherspoon looked at Newman before replying. It's mainly related to the technology of importing some magic machines from your new flyer. His Majesty is very interested in how Banta City has developed into a prosperous city in just a few short years with the help of your new flyer. So he wants to create an economic center city in our Kingdom of Ruhr. But this requires a certain magic machine industry foundation, which means it needs a certain amount of technology. So, Chairman Su, in this aspect, I hope that your new flyer can properly cooperate with us. Su, E, and Kennard looked at each other before revealing understanding smiles and saying with a nod, Sir Director, you don't need to worry. I came to the Kingdom of Ruhr this time to discuss the matter of building a magic machine industry foundation in the Kingdom of Ruhr with Mr. Newman. As for the technology, I believe that we can reach a result that both sides are satisfied with. Is that so? That's good. Director Witherspoon nodded with a faint smile before saying to Newman, Since Chairman Su is here, then Newman, you don't need to stay here. You'll be responsible for receiving Chairman Su. Remember, you have to satisfy Chairman Su. Understood? Yes, Sir Director. I will definitely do my best to arrange it. After talking to Newman, Director Witherspoon turned to Su E and said with a serious look, Chairman Su, if there's time later, I want to have a long talk with you. I wonder if you can give me some face. I can't ask for more. Su E said with a smile. All right, Chairman Su, CEO Kennard, I hope that you'll have a good time in our Kingdom of Ruhr. Director Witherspoon gave a nod before returning to the group. The others in the crowd didn't react when they saw Newman's actions, but seeing that Director Witherspoon had gone to talk to Su, E, and Kennard for a while, they couldn't help being curious about their identities, so they all looked over. Newman didn't care that much. After calling the two of them, he prepared to head back to Caracas City with the two of them. When the three of them were about to leave, there was a thunderous sound of horse hooves that came from the road behind them, causing the entire road to tremble. Since the magic car was developed, he hadn't heard the sound of horse hooves in a long time, so he couldn't help turning back in curiosity. When he turned, he saw that on the road in the distance, there were several dozen horses pulling several horse carriages that were wildly charging over. Normally speaking, it was hard for horse carriages to surpass 30 kilometers an hour, but the horses pulling the carriages weren't normal and the quality of the horse carriages wasn't bad. Now that they were running at full speed, although they couldn't compare to the magic cars, they were still quite fast. Moreover, when the horse carriages were running at full speed, the momentum was very shocking. This was something that the magic cars couldn't compare to. Seeing the horse carriages wildly charging over, the pedestrians and other vehicles on the road all moved aside, afraid that they wouldn't be able to avoid them. When the first horse carriage was about to enter the station, a little girl suddenly appeared on the side of the road, and there was a young girl following behind her. The young girl shouted as she desperately tried to pull the little girl back, but she was too far away. The horse carriage didn't slow down at all, and the front hooves of the first horse were about to step on the little girl's head. He gave a cold snort and released his magic, creating a wall of wind over the little girl's head. Chapter 570. The horse's hooves continued to fall and stomped heavily on the wind wall, but it was as if it stepped on a hard wall and could not move forward at all. At this time, the wind wall also bounced back with a gentle but unstoppable force. The front hooves of the first horse and the horse that followed it were all bounced back, forcing the two horses to fall to the side. Then, the entire carriage crashed heavily into the wind wall that Sue-Yi had set up in front of the little girl. Boom! The horses were extremely fast. Although Sue-Yi had held back, this sudden collision was still a solid one. The entire carriage and the two horses that were pulling it collided into a ball, and even the axle of the carriage was broken in half. Although the carriage was blocked by the wind wall and did not fall directly, such a violent collision was clearly not easy to bear. The coachman who was sitting in front of the carriage fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Sue-Yi coldly looked at the coachman without the slightest bit of pity in his heart. This guy actually dared to drive the carriage so fast in a crowded place without regard for other people's lives. He deserved to be taught a lesson like this. However, Sue-Yi was also very clear that the reason why the coachman dared to disregard other people's lives was because of the people sitting in the carriage. His gaze fell on the carriages behind. Sue-Yi's eyes became cold. He took a few steps forward and picked up the little girl who had been scared silly. He stuffed her into the arms of a similarly shocked young woman and whispered to her, "Hurry up and go. Don't hesitate." The young woman was stunned for a moment and looked gratefully at Sue-Yi. She whispered her thanks and hurriedly carried the little girl into the fields beside the road, disappearing after a moment. Sue-Yi turned around and looked at the group that was in a mess because the first carriage was suddenly stopped. He sneered in his heart. These people dared to be so arrogant. Clearly they had something to rely on. And from this posture, it was very likely that the people in this group were the people that the Kingdom of Ruhr had come to welcome. And from the formation of the Kingdom of Ruhr that was responsible for welcoming them, the people in this group must have a very prominent status. To put it simply, he must have gotten himself into big trouble this time. However, Sue-Yi would never regret what he had done. In that situation, even if he had 10,000 more choices, he would still do the same. Now that he thought about it, he even wished that he had been more heavy-handed just now and gave these fellows a more severe punishment. Unruly people, how dare you block my way? Just as Sue-Yi was sizing up the damaged condition of the first carriage, a stern shout was heard. Then, the sound of something breaking through the air came from the front. Hearing this sound, Sue-Yi's gaze turned cold. He then activated the mana within his body and set up a magic barrier. When the whip hit the magic barrier, it was immediately shattered by the barrier. The person who had whipped Sue-Yi from the second horse carriage spat out a mouthful of blood from the recoil of the magic barrier and fell to the ground, unable to get up. Magician! Everyone around was taken aback. Although magicians were not particularly rare in the signs, they were still a powerful existence in the hearts of most people. When they realized that Sue-Yi was actually a magician, and that his magic power was not bad, the people in the group who had originally wanted to charge forward stopped and looked at Sue-Yi with slight hesitation. However, these people did not have the slightest intention of retreating. Instead, they flipped their hands and took out several bows and arrows, aiming at Sue-Yi. From the looks of it, as long as Sue-Yi made the slightest move, they would not hesitate to shoot the arrows. Seeing that both sides were ready to fight, Newman suddenly rushed from behind and stood in front of Sue-Yi. He anxiously shouted at the people in the group, "It's a misunderstanding. This is a misunderstanding." After saying that, he turned around and gave Sue-Yi a look. Sue-Yi understood. After all, this was the Kingdom of Ruhr's territory, so he had to give Newman some face. He nodded and prepared to leave. However, just because he wanted to keep the peace didn't mean the other side wanted to. When he turned around, there was a cold laugh that came from behind him. "Humph, blocking Sir Hakkonen's path and injuring our people. You want to leave like this?" Sue-Yi slightly knit his brows. When he was hesitating if he should ignore the other side and leave, he suddenly felt a wave of magic elemental energy behind him, and his expression instantly changed. Turning around like a whirlwind, he saw a giant fireball flying at him. Sue-Yi's heart filled with rage. This was clearly a 4th-level fire spell, the Bursting Flame spell. If he didn't have any defenses, he would be seriously injured if he didn't die. Moreover, with the might of this Bursting Flame spell, Newman beside him would definitely be affected. The magician on the other side didn't even care about Newman and Sue-Yi's life or death. This was simply arrogant to the extreme. Su-yi gave a snort and released all the magic in his body. He instantly released a 5th-level water shield spell, covering himself and Newman. The giant fireball slammed into the light blue water shield and was instantly swallowed, not even creating a single spark. Su-yi looked in the direction the bursting flame spell came from and saw a magician who seemed to be around 50 years old standing on a roof of the 3rd horse carriage. He was currently looking over with a strange look, clearly feeling very surprised that his bursting flame spell was blocked this easily. Seeing Su-yi look over with a taunting smile on his face, that magician was a bit angry. His eyes focused, and he raised his hand, causing sparks to quickly gather in his palm. It seemed that this magician should be focused on fire magic, and, judging from the bursting flame spell just now, his level of fire magic was indeed not bad. But how could Su-yi give him a chance to slowly gather his magic? With a wave of his hand, a fireball much smaller than the bursting flame spell just now flew over. Seeing this fireball, the mage's face immediately showed an extremely aghast expression. He hurriedly stopped condensing his mana and didn't even have enough time to cast a wind-controlling spell. He directly jumped down from the roof of the carriage. What a joke! This was a level 8 fire spell, Flame Bullet. With his current level, there was no way he could defend against it. However, just as the flame bullet was about to sweep past the roof of the horse carriage, it suddenly turned downwards and hit the back of the magician who was jumping off the horse carriage. Boom! That magician was directly shot down from the air by the explosion of the flame bullet and landed heavily on the ground. All the clothes on his back were instantly burned to ashes, revealing his roasted back and buttocks. Su-yi and that magician's exchange only lasted for a moment. The surrounding people only felt that in the blink of an eye, that magician had already turned into a dead pig lying on the ground. Everyone was immediately dumbfounded. Newman, who was beside Su-yi, glanced at that magician and turned his head with difficulty. He swallowed hard and asked Su-yi with a look of horror, "Chairman Su-yi, you killed him?" Su-yi shook his head. He shouldn't be dead. At most, he's just seriously injured. Newman turned his head to look at that magician lying motionless on the ground, and then looked back at Su-yi. With a long face, he said, "Chairman Su, you're in big trouble. Is that so?" Su-yi was very calm. He had already guessed that there were important people in this motorcade, but since things had already been done, he wouldn't waste time regretting it. The surrounding people finally reacted at this time. The people in the motorcade quickly began to treat the magician and the soldier who had been injured by Su-yi. The group of people from the Kingdom of Ruhr also charged over. A group of people charged into the motorcade, as if they wanted to argue with the people in the motorcade. Another group of people charged at Su-yi with angry looks on their faces. Even Chief Witherspoon, who had been talking to Su-yi, had a dark look on his face, looking at Su-yi with unkind eyes. "Chairman Su, what are you doing?" Chief Witherspoon said in a sharp voice. "Do you know that the one sitting here is Ambassador Hakkinen from the Kamla Empire? He represents the Kamla Empire. It doesn't matter if you want to offend the Kamla Empire, but don't drag our Kingdom of Ruhr into this." Hearing Chief Witherspoon's words, the surrounding Kingdom of Ruhr officials had strange looks on their faces. After all this time, this powerful-looking young magician who suddenly appeared was actually some kind of chairman. Moreover, he didn't sound like someone from their Kingdom of Ruhr. Thinking of this, everyone calmed down. If it was a magician from the Kingdom of Ruhr who attacked Ambassador Hakkinen's motorcade, this matter would be troublesome. But since this magician wasn't someone from the Kingdom of Ruhr, they could remove the Kingdom of Ruhr from this matter. As long as they could calm Ambassador Hakkinen's anger, it shouldn't affect the relationship between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Kamla Empire. But they were also a bit curious. Although Chief Witherspoon was very angry, he was already very polite to Su-yi. Just what kind of person was this Chairman Su? An ambassador from the Kamla Empire? Hearing Chief Witherspoon's words, Su-yi suddenly understood. No wonder the Kingdom of Ruhr sent such an exaggerated lineup to welcome this motorcade. After all this time, the person in this motorcade was actually an ambassador from the Kamla Empire to the Kingdom of Ruhr. For a small country like the Kingdom of Ruhr, with close to 100 signs, the Kanla Empire, as one of the two empires on the signs, was undoubtedly a colossal existence. To be able to establish a good relationship with the Kanla Empire and even establish diplomatic relations with the Kanla Empire, allowing the Kanla Empire to send an ambassador, this was naturally a very important matter for the Kingdom of Ruhr. Su-yi raised his hand and interrupted Chief Witherspoon's words as he said with a smile, "Sir Chief, please rest assured. This is my personal action. It has nothing to do with your Kingdom of Ruhr." Hearing this, Chief Witherspoon and the other officials of the Kingdom of Ruhr all let out a sigh of relief. But Chief Witherspoon immediately felt a trace of shame in his heart. Just now he said that he hoped Su-yi could have a good time in the Kingdom of Ruhr, but now he turned around and sold him out. This was a bit too much. Chairman Su. This. Seeing Chief Witherspoon's expression, Su-yi of course understood his meaning. He waved his hand with a smile. "Sir Chief, don't mind it. This is my own matter. It has nothing to do with you. Let me handle it. I'll take responsibility for the consequences." A trace of shame flashed across Chief Witherspoon's face. He thought for a bit, but didn't say anything. He sighed and moved aside. The other officials of the Kingdom of Ruhr looked at Chief Witherspoon in confusion before moving aside and watching Su-yi walk towards the Kanla Empire's motorcade. Chapter 571. A hand suddenly reached out from the side and grabbed Su-yi's arm. Su-yi turned his head and saw Newman's hesitant expression. "Chairman Su, you." Newman hesitated a bit before suddenly making up his mind. "You should quickly leave this place. You are a magician, so if you leave with Kennard, no one here can stop you. But if you're late, you won't have a chance." Su-yi looked at Newman with a bit of surprise. He didn't think that Newman would actually be thinking about him at this time. Su-yi's heart was moved, but he shook his head with a smile. "No, I won't leave. Even if Kennard and I can leave, our new flyer has many properties in the Kingdom of Ruhr, so we can't leave. Moreover, if I leave now, it would be the same as giving up the entire Kingdom of Ruhr. Do you think I'll accept that?" Newman was stunned for a bit, but Su-yi pushed his hand away and continued walking towards the motorcade. The officials of the Kingdom of Ruhr that had rushed over were negotiating with the people of the Kanla Empire's ambassador's motorcade, but when they saw the culprit Su-yi walk over, they all stopped. If it was according to their original intention, the officials of the Kingdom of Ruhr would have their subordinates capture Su-yi first and then apologize to Ambassador Hakanyan, hoping to appease his anger. But because Su-yi was a powerful magician and they had only come out to greet Ambassador Su-yi, they didn't expect this kind of thing to happen. The subordinates they brought weren't strong enough, so they didn't dare use force against Su-yi. The people of the Kanla Empire's ambassador's motorcade had already been shocked by Su-yi's move, so they didn't dare make any moves. So the group of people could only watch as Su-yi walked over. They were on guard, but no one dared to move. Seeing the strange situation in front of him, Su-yi couldn't help but feel a little strange. Ever since he had transmigrated to this world, he had been told by countless people how different powerful magicians were. However, in the past few years, he had been studying in the Sun Kaiser Academy and had come into contact with more mages than ordinary people. After graduating from the Sun Kaiser Academy, he went straight to work in Great Mage Camilla's Mage Tower, where he often interacted with mages. As for the new flyer, he had been interacting with mages all day long, and had a very deep relationship with the only 5 great mages in the Lampari Kingdom. This gave him the illusion that magicians were nothing special in this world, and even great magicians were nothing. However, the current situation made him deeply experience the deterrence of a powerful mage. Although he was alone, because there were no magicians nearby who could match him, he was almost invincible. But this was also because the soldiers of the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Kanla Empire's ambassador were only equipped with traditional weapons, so they couldn't pose any threat to a magician. If it was the new flyer guards that were fully equipped with military magic machines, not to mention Su-yi, even if it was a great magician, they wouldn't be as fearless as Su-yi. When great magician Camilla had a sudden impulse, he had practiced with the new flyer guards. The final result was that if they were to fight head-on, Great Magician Camilla could only passively defend against 100 new flyer guards, and it would be very hard for him to use his magic to attack. Unless Great Magician Camilla made a move first and used a powerful high-level spell, or even a forbidden spell to instantly kill these guards. As long as the military magic machines of the guards had a supply of magic, Great Magician Camilla would run out of magic and die in the end. The magic power of the military magic machines came from the magic crystals that could be seen everywhere, so the cost was very low. After several practice battles, Great Magician Camilla couldn't help saying with an emotional sigh, "The era of magicians deciding the outcome of battle is about to come to an end." Of course, this was only for the new flyer guards. On the continent, there was no one like the new flyer guards that were fully equipped with military magic machines. It was impossible to find a single one in the Kingdom of Ruhr, so Sui naturally didn't need to worry. Sui walked to the center of the crowd and looked around. Finally, his eyes fell onto the luxurious-looking horse carriage in the middle of the motorcade. "Ambassador Hakkinen, if you don't come out, I'll treat this matter as over. What do you think?" The surrounding people were stunned. They thought that Sui had taken the initiative to apologize, but they never thought that he would dare talk to Ambassador Hakkinen in this kind of tone. Since he knew Ambassador Hakkinen's name, there was no reason for him not to know Ambassador Hakkinen's identity. But he still had this kind of attitude. Did he eat a bear's heart or a leopard's guts? A cold laugh came from inside the horse carriage. "A trivial low-level magician. What qualifications do you have to talk to me? Sir Calabi, I came all the way from the Canla Empire, bringing the sincere greetings from His Majesty to your country's king, but I've suffered this kind of treatment. Don't you think you should do something?" A white-haired official from the Kingdom of Ruhr who looked very dignified looked at Sui and said in a deep voice, "This Excellency magician, do you know your crime?" Sui gave a shrug. "What crime?" The Kingdom of Ruhr's Foreign Affairs Chief Count Calabi's face sunk. "You rammed Sir Calabi's motorcade and even dared to injure Sir Calabi's subordinates, but you still dare say you're innocent?" Sui shook his head with a smile. "Before investigating my problem, I'll have to trouble Sir Calabi to investigate Ambassador Hakkinen's crime first. All right? If it wasn't for me reacting fast enough, they would have trampled an innocent little girl to death. Also, saying that I injured Ambassador Hakkinen's subordinates? There are many people here who saw it. It was clearly them who made a move first. I was just defending myself, twisting words and forcing logic." Count Calabi said in a sharp voice. "That little girl came out to seek death. How is it related to Ambassador Hakkinen? Because your actions have frightened Ambassador Hakkinen. This is a serious crime." "Oh." Sui raised a brow. "So in Sir Calabi's eyes, the lives of your Kingdom of Ruhr's citizens aren't important at all? It's not even as serious as frightening Ambassador Hakkinen? All right, I ask Ambassador Hakkinen to come out of the carriage. Let me see just what kind of scare Sir Ambassador Hakkinen has received. Is it even more terrifying than death?" Count Calabi's expression froze before he flew into a rage. He angrily pointed at Sui. "Where did you magician come from? You're actually this arrogant. Someone come, take him from me." The people on the side all looked at Count Calabi, but no one dared to make a move. Count Calabi finally reacted. The magician in front of him was very strong. He couldn't do anything to him at all. Thinking of this, Count Calabi could only suppress the anger in his heart for now. He said to Sui with a serious look, "I urge you to apologize to Ambassador Hakkinen as soon as possible. Otherwise, if this matter really becomes big, even if you are an outstanding magician, you won't be able to withstand the anger of our Kingdom of Ruhr and the Canla Empire." Sui gave a shrug. He didn't care about Count Calabi's words at all, as he turned and walked in front of Ambassador Hakkinen's carriage. The guards of Ambassador Hakkinen's motorcade nervously looked at Sui as they surrounded the carriage. Sui smiled at them before saying into the horse carriage, "Ambassador Hakkinen, if you keep hiding in the horse carriage and don't have any sincerity in solving this matter, I will be very disappointed in you." There was a snort that came from the carriage. "Disappointed? What qualification do you have to be disappointed in me?" "It's very simple. It's just based on this. He suddenly raised his hand, and several light, blue, glowing wind blades came out of his hand. The people surrounding the carriage were shocked. They wanted to block these wind blades, but they found that they couldn't do anything at all. Moreover, these wind blades were very fast. When they could react, these wind blades had already brushed past their bodies. Chi, 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 chi. More than 10 wind blades hit the carriage, and a series of light sounds like the cutting of sharp blades rang out. Then, the carriage made a series of cracking sounds, and the roof of the carriage was directly cut open by the wind blades. The remaining 4 walls also fell down in an orderly manner. All that was left of the carriage was a bare floor and a fat, middle-aged man sitting in the middle of the carriage. The middle-aged man looked at Sue-yi in a daze for a while before suddenly jumping up with an agility that didn't match his figure. He pointed at Sue-yi and angrily cursed. "You actually dare make a move against me? Do you know who I am? Let me tell you, you're dead. I will definitely send you to the gallows. No, I will definitely send you to prison and let you suffer." Sue-yi couldn't help feeling a bit surprised. He thought that since this Ambassador Hakkinen was sent from the Kanla Empire, it would be reasonable for him to act high and mighty in a small country. But now he actually had this kind of angry appearance. It was no different from a little hoodlum on the street. This really was a bit unexpected. Looking at the officials of the Kingdom of Roar on the side, he found that although they couldn't help knitting their brows, not a single one of them had a surprised expression. It could be seen that Ambassador Hakkinen had always been like this. Hey, the ambassador doesn't just represent the image of a country. It also represents the importance a country places on the country that sent the ambassador. Looking at Ambassador Hakkinen's level, I'm afraid the Kanla Empire doesn't care about the Kingdom of Roar at all. Sue-yi looked at the officials of the Kingdom of Roar, who didn't dare say a single word to Ambassador Hakkinen, and he couldn't help shaking his head. The Kingdom of Roar showing a fawning attitude towards the Kanla Empire was understandable, but the results of this fawning might not be as good as they imagined. Chapter 572. Sue-yi was strolling through the Kingdom of Roar's royal palace like he was on a tour. While walking, he was looking around, looking very relaxed. At the relay station outside the city, Ambassador Hakkinen wasn't willing to settle this matter, and they couldn't do anything to Sue-yi. Sue-yi wasn't willing to let go either, so the situation was in a deadlock. The stalemate was only broken when Caracas city guards and the palace guard arrived. However, contrary to everyone's expectations, even more contrary to Ambassador Hakkinen's expectations, although this matter was very important and even alarmed the Kingdom of Roar's current King Tarek, His Majesty's reaction was different from everyone's expectations. Everyone knew that Sue-yi, a trivial low-grade magician, actually dared to attack Ambassador Hakkinen's motorcade. Then on account of the Kanla Empire, King Tarek would definitely side with Ambassador Hakkinen. At least he would lock up this arrogant magician. If nothing unexpected happened, His Majesty would even hand this magician over to Ambassador Hakkinen to appease his anger. For a small country like the Kingdom of Roar, it was normal for them to bow down in front of the Kanla Empire. The reason why Ambassador Hakkinen was so arrogant in the Kingdom of Roar was because of the Kingdom of Roar's attitude. However, in the king's decree that the royal palace guards brought, there wasn't any intention of dealing with Sue-yi. It was just for Ambassador Hakkinen and Sue-yi to enter the royal palace together. This result was outside of everyone's expectations, because the way the king dealt with it, he was treating Sue-yi and Ambassador Hakkinen on the same level. It had to be known, Ambassador Hakkinen was the ambassador sent by the Kanla Empire to the Kingdom of Roar. For the small Kingdom of Roar, he was the most honored guest. Why was Sue-yi on the same level as him? This question not only filled the hearts of the Kingdom of Roar's officials with doubt, it also confused Ambassador Hakkinen while also filling his heart with anger. This King Tarek, could it be that he wanted to protect this little magician? Could it be that he wasn't worried about Ambassador Hakkinen's anger? Kennard looked at Ambassador Hakkinen not far away and saw that his eyes were filled with hatred. He couldn't help slightly knitting his brows as he said to Sue-yi beside him in a soft voice, "Sir Chairman, why are you doing this? What? Is it strange? So he asked back with a smile. It is very strange. Kennard nodded. You aren't an impulsive person. You could have just left after saving the mother and daughter. So why did you choose to clash with Ambassador Hakkinen? I don't believe that you can't guess his identity. Sue, he revealed a faint smile. Your guess is right. I did it on purpose. Kennard deeply knit his brows. This isn't necessary, right? I don't see what benefits there are in clashing with this Sir Ambassador from the Kamla Empire. Of course, there are no benefits in doing this. Sue, he shook his head with a smile. But it can allow us to see the attitudes of some people. Attitudes? Kennard looked at the officials of the Kingdom of Ruhr and gave a bitter laugh. Sir Chairman, I feel that there is no need to see their attitudes. In front of a giant like the Kamla Empire, whether it is the Kingdom of Ruhr or our Lampari Kingdom, we don't have a choice. No, you don't need to care about these fellows' attitudes. What I really care about is the one inside. He pointed into the depths of the palace. Based on the current situation, the results should be quite good. Kennard looked into the depths of the palace in surprise before turning back to look at Sue with eyes filled with admiration. He thought that Sue was being impulsive, but he never thought that he had already considered such a long-term matter. This kind of eyesight, Kennard admitted that he couldn't compare to Sue. Although the Kingdom of Ruhr's palace was much bigger than the Lampari Kingdom's palace. After walking for a while under the guidance of the palace guards, they still stopped in front of a large hall. Sir Ambassador, Chairman Sue, please come in. His Majesty is already waiting for the two of you inside. The one who came out to greet them was a palace official. He invited Ambassador Hakkinen and Sue in, but he kept the other officials of the Kingdom of Ruhr outside. Sue waved his hand at Kennard before walking into the hall with Ambassador Hakkinen. This hall was very large, being at least 50 meters from the entrance to the innermost part. After entering, they saw a path paved with a red carpet that extended all the way to the farthest end before stopping on a platform that was slightly higher than the surrounding ground. There was a large chair on the platform, and there was a young man who looked to be around 30 years old sitting in it. The young man had a crown on his head, so he should be the current king of the Kingdom of Ruhr, Lopatny Tarek. This was Su Yi's first time seeing King Tarek. From the information that Kennard had gathered on King Tarek, he knew that although King Tarek wasn't even 40 years old, he was a very powerful king. Seeing him now, Su Yi only took a single look before agreeing with the judgment of the information. Based on his face and expression, he should be the kind of person who liked to control everything and wasn't willing to be manipulated by others. Su Yi couldn't help slightly knitting his brows. A king with this kind of personality wasn't easy to get along with. After Su Yi and Ambassador Hakkinen walked into the hall, King Tarek didn't move at all. When the two of them arrived in front of the throne, he stood up and walked over with a wide smile. Ambassador Hakkinen, you're my old friend, so there's no need for this kind of ceremony. Ambassador Hakkinen's salute was very sloppy, but now that King Tarek was supporting him, he immediately stood up and said with a smile, Your Majesty, I am very honored to be able to see you again. After returning to the Empire this time, His Majesty personally asked me about your situation. I praised your great talents in front of His Majesty, and His Majesty appreciated you very much. He said that if there was a chance in the future, our Kamla Empire would definitely cooperate with the Kingdom of Ruhr. Oh, that really is great. King Tarek gave two laughs before turning to look at Su Yi, but he didn't say anything. Su Yi quickly bowed to King Tarek like a normal citizen bowing to the king. New Flyers Chairman Su Yi greets His Majesty. New Flyers Chairman. Ambassador Hakkinen looked at Su Yi in surprise. Aren't you a magician? Sir Ambassador, no one said that a company's chairman can't be a magician, right? Su Yi asked back with a smile. This Ambassador Hakkinen only knew of Su Yi's identity now. It seemed like he wasn't welcomed in the Kingdom of Ruhr. Otherwise, those Kingdom of Ruhr officials would have known about Su Yi, but no one told him. Ambassador Hakkinen's expression froze before he gave a soft snort. It doesn't matter if you're a magician or a company's chairman. Since you dare offend me, you're dead today. After saying this, Ambassador Hakkinen slightly raised his voice as he said to King Tarek, Your Majesty, This new Flyers chairman actually used magic to stop my motorcade and even injured 2 of my subordinates. How do you think we should deal with this? King Tarek's eyes lit up, but he still had a smile on his face. He nodded to Ambassador Hakkinen before saying to Sue-E with a smile, "Chairman Sue, hello. I'm very happy to see you." Seeing King Tarek show such a pleasant expression to Sue-E, Ambassador Hakkinen's heart was filled with dissatisfaction. He gave a strong snort. "Your Majesty, I hope that you can properly deal with this matter today. I just came from the Kanla Empire today and encountered this matter on the road. I can treat this as a provocation to me and the Kanla Empire that I represent. If you can't properly deal with this matter, I will report this matter to His Majesty and let him make a decision." Because King Tarek was talking to Sue-E, his face was naturally looking in Sue-Ye's direction and his back was facing Ambassador Hakkinen. Sue-E could clearly see that after hearing Ambassador Hakkinen's words, King Tarek had a look of anger on his face. However, when he turned back to look at Ambassador Hakkinen, he had a smile on his face. "Ambassador Hakkinen, as for this matter, how about we discuss it over here?" Seeing King Tarek pull Ambassador Hakkinen to the side of the hall to talk in a low voice, Sue-E couldn't help revealing a faint smile. He had made the right bet. After a while, it was unknown what King Tarek and Ambassador Hakkinen were talking about, but his angry face was now filled with a smile. When he came over with King Tarek, he had a proud look on his face, not looking like he had been wronged at all. After coming to Sue-Ye's side, Ambassador Hakkinen glared at Sue. "Since His Majesty is pleading for you, I'll let you off this year. But Sue-E, remember, it's best if you don't appear in front of me in the future. Otherwise, I will definitely make you pay the price for what you've done today." After leaving behind some words that weren't much different from what a street gangster would say after a fight, Ambassador Hakkinen gave King Tarek a bow before leaving. Watching him leave, Sue-E looked at King Tarek in surprise. "Your Majesty, what kind of magic did you use? It actually made this fellow let me off so easily? I'm not a magician. How could I use magic?" King Tarek's face, that didn't look like he was close to 40 years old, revealed a smile filled with ridicule. "But I think that no matter who it is, as long as they receive 200,000 gold coins as compensation, they will let go of the hatred in their hearts. Don't you think so, Chairman Sue?" Chapter 573. 200,000 gold coins. Sue-E looked at King Tarek in surprise. He couldn't help shaking his head as he said with a sigh, "Your Majesty, you really are a big spender." Of course, this Ambassador Hakkinen's appetite is really big. "He always had a big appetite," King Tarek said with a smile. King Tarek smiled, "But this 200,000 gold coins is completely for you." "For me?" Sue-E was even more surprised. "Your Majesty, I don't have that much face. It's worth you spending 200,000 gold coins to solve this matter." 200,000 gold coins might be a lot for others, but is it a lot for you? King Tarek looked at Sue-E with a gaze of deep meaning. "Chairman Sue, if my estimates aren't wrong, your new Flyers profits last year should be at least 5 million gold coins, right?" Sue-E revealed a faint smile, not denying it at all. "I admit that our new Flyers profits aren't bad, but we also spent a lot. Moreover, Your Majesty, how is this related to you being willing to spend 200,000 gold coins?" King Tarek shook his head. "Chairman Sue, I think we shouldn't waste time talking nonsense here. Since you want me to show my sincerity, then I've already shown it. Although 200,000 gold coins might not be much for you, for me and even for our Kingdom of Ruhr, this is not a number that can be casually thrown out. I've already shown enough sincerity. Then what about you, Chairman Sue?" Sue-E was a bit surprised in his heart. Although from the information Kennard had gathered on this King Tarek and his observations on the Kingdom of Ruhr, Sue-E could infer that this King Tarek was a very ambitious and far-sighted king. So he deliberately used this chance to test King Tarek and the Kingdom of Ruhr's attitude towards the new flyer. However, Sue-E didn't expect King Tarek to express his attitude to Sue-E in such a straightforward manner. It was like King Tarek had said, in this matter, he had paid 200,000 gold coins to calm Ambassador Hakkinen's anger. This was indeed a very high level of sincerity to Sue-E. Sui thought for a while and stopped smiling. He nodded at King Tarek and said seriously, "Your Majesty, I have to say that I am very surprised by your attitude. Actually, I came here with a very nervous heart because I'm not sure what you're thinking. Do you understand now?" King Tarek smiled. "Yes, I am a merchant. So from these 200,000 gold coins, I can clearly feel your Majesty's sincerity. Obviously, I must respond to your sincerity." Sui paused and asked, "Your Majesty, please tell me your thoughts, or just tell me your request. What if I ask you for the military magic machine technology?" King Tarek asked with a smile. "That's impossible." Sui firmly shook his head. "We can't transfer this technology right now. There is no room for discussion." "Is that so?" King Tarek gave a soft snort. "Chairman Sui, don't forget, you're in my royal palace right now. As long as I give the order, I can easily capture you. Do you think that using your life to exchange for the military magic machine technology is possible?" "Impossible." Sui didn't look like he was threatened by these words at all. Rather, he said with a relaxed smile, "Your Majesty, you wouldn't do this because what you really want is not as simple as the military magic machine technology. Do you think you understand me very well?" King Tarek slightly narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Chairman Sui, don't look down on your own value. In my opinion, the value of a single person like you is even greater than our kingdom's 2 armies." "Oh, I really have to thank your Majesty for this," Sui said with a smile. "But because of this, you won't threaten me with my life, right?" King Tarek gave a snort. "You are right. You're far more useful alive than dead. At the very least, I don't want you to die before I squeeze all the value out of you." Sui laughed and spread out his hands. "All right then, I am here now. Your Majesty, how do you want to squeeze all the value out of me?" King Tarek looked at Sui and put on a smile again. He slightly shook his head and said, "As expected, I can't treat you as an ordinary merchant. All right, let's not talk nonsense and get down to business. Chairman Sui, regarding the 2 cooperation projects proposed by New Flyer, I would like to represent the Kingdom of Ruhr to agree to them, but the specific details need to be discussed again." "Thank you for your agreement. But Your Majesty, what are the details that you want to discuss?" "The specific details will be up to your company to discuss with the relevant departments of the kingdom. I will only give you a general idea." Sui nodded. "Please enlighten me, Your Majesty." "First, it is regarding the rental of Nissi City's port. Your New Flyer wants to rent it for a long term. That is not a problem. But you want to rent the port to only park your New Flyer's ships. This is something that I do not agree to." "Oh, why is that?" Sui asked. "Because that is our Kingdom of Ruhr's territory. Do you understand what I mean?" King Tarek said in a deep voice. Sui thought for a bit and nodded. "I understand. Your Majesty, you think that if we follow the request of our company, we will lose our sovereignty over the port, right? It's good that you understand. Then, Your Majesty, what do you think?" Sui asked again. "If we use it as a normal port, then I don't think our company needs to ask you to rent it. What do you think? Of course, we will still give your New Flyer some special privileges." King Tarek said, "I will specially approve a few ports in Nissi City to allow your New Flyer ships to dock there first. But when your New Flyer ships are not there, other ships can dock there. Then your New Flyer will only need to pay a certain amount of management fees every year." "What do you think?" Sui frowned slightly. "What if our New Flyer ships arrive at the port and find that there are already other ships docked there? That is simple. We just need to inform them in advance." King Tarek waved his hand. "These are all details. You can discuss with the Nissi City's mayor. I will only make my own request. You can discuss the rest." Sui thought for a bit. Although he felt that this plan was not perfect, he could accept it and nodded. "Then that is it. Our company will comply with Your Majesty's wishes and negotiate with the Nissi City's mayor. Then, Your Majesty, what instructions do you have for the 2nd cooperation project?" "The 2nd cooperation project. I don't have any opinions on this project itself. But Chairman Sui, I have a different opinion on the way your New Flyer has chosen." "Oh, Your Majesty, are you dissatisfied with the current cooperation method?" "It's not that I am dissatisfied. Your Frestec Chamber of Commerce has already invested in 17 magic machine factories in our Rudsun Kingdom, as well as recruiting a total of 6,423 local workers in our Rudsun Kingdom. This has solved the work problem of our kingdom's citizens and made a large contribution to improving their living conditions. So I am very satisfied with this. Su-yi smiled and said, "Thank you for your praise, Your Majesty. But this is only what we should do. It is not worthy of your praise. Before your Frestec Chamber of Commerce came, we didn't have these things." King Tarek shook his head. "If it wasn't for the changes your new flyer brought to our kingdom, do you think you would have the opportunity to stand here and talk to me today? If I didn't have this value, I wouldn't be here today, right?" Su-yi asked with a smile. King Tarek laughed and said, "Chairman Su, you are indeed different from ordinary merchants. Good. I don't deny your value. I appreciate the value of your new flyer. But Chairman Su, don't you think your new flyer is too slow and too careful in our kingdom of Ur?" Su-yi frowned and said, "Your Majesty, you mean..." King Tarek waved his hand. "My meaning is very simple. Our kingdom of Ur is not the Lampari kingdom, and I am not your Lampari kingdom's old Lampuri 13th or this useless Eric. You don't need to have the same scruples towards our kingdom of Ur because of what happened in the Lampari kingdom." Su-yi smiled and didn't say anything. Actually, King Tarek was right. It was because the new flyer had been suppressed in the Lampari kingdom that Su-yi became more careful when he sent the new flyer into the kingdom of Ur. He wasn't like when he was in the Lampari kingdom 2 years ago, investing in factories all over the place because he was worried that something would happen in the kingdom of Ur. Seeing the expression on Su-yi's face, King Tarek slowed down his voice and said with a serious look, "Chairman Su, I am very clear on the value of you in the new flyer. I am also very clear on the influence and change that the magic machine industry you represent can bring to a country. So I am willing to take the risk of offending Ambassador Hakkinen and even the Kanla Empire to protect you. I've already made my stance clear. What else do you need to worry about?" Su-yi was silent for a bit before looking at King Tarek and asking in a soft voice, "All right, Your Majesty, what do you want me and my company to do?" "It's very simple. Open up all kinds of household magic machine technology to us and help train talents in the magic machine industry in our kingdom, promoting the development of the magic machine industry in our kingdom. My goal is to make every city in the kingdom of Ur as prosperous as Banta City from before." Seeing the glow in King Tarek's eyes and the strong confidence on his face, Su-yi couldn't say anything for a while. Chapter 574. When Su-yi came out of the royal palace, Kennard came forward to greet him. "How is it, Sir Chairman? His Majesty didn't do anything to you, right? I saw that Ambassador Hakkinen leaving the royal palace a long time ago. Did he make it hard for you?" Kennard carefully looked over Su-yi and found that he wasn't injured at all, so he calmed down a bit. But seeing Su-yi slightly knit his brows, he was still a bit worried. He then asked, "Could it be that Ambassador Hakkinen gave you an excessive request that forced you to agree?" Su-yi came back to his senses and replied while shaking his head, "No, His Majesty has already helped me solve this matter, so there's no problem now." "Then, why do you still have this expression?" Kennard asked in a confused voice. "I'm just surprised." Su-yi turned back to look at the royal palace gates. "His Majesty's attitude towards me is very good. It should be very good, even exceeding my expectations." "Is that so?" Kennard was a bit doubtful. "Although the Kingdom of Ur has always supported our new flyer's investment here, His Majesty's attitude is very good. Is there a need for him to do this? I don't know about this." Su-yi gave a shrug. "Perhaps His Majesty Tarek really likes our new flyer's potential." Su-yi turned back to look at the royal palace, and his heart was filled with emotions. He really never thought that King Tarek would place such importance on him and the new flyer. In his conversation with Su-yi just now, King Tarek had clearly expressed to Su-yi that he would fully support the new flyer's investment in the Kingdom of Ur. He also hoped that the new flyer could cooperate with the Kingdom of Ur without any scruples, developing the magic machine industry in the Kingdom of Ruhr together. King Tarek even promised Su-yi that he could give the new flyer some privileges in appropriate places. This promise made Su-yi think of Lampuri 13th. When a new flyer had just risen in the Lampari Kingdom, although Lampuri 13th didn't promise Su-yi anything, in terms of actions, he had given Su-yi and the new flyer a lot of support. He had also given the new flyer some privileges in many places. But Lampuri 13th's attitude towards the Frestec Chamber of Commerce was very conservative. He only gave the Frestec Chamber of Commerce some limited privileges in Bana City, which were very limited privileges. After Lampuri 13th passed and His Highness Eric took the throne, not only did the Frestec Chamber of Commerce lose all their privileges, they were even forced out of the Lampuri Kingdom by the conservative nobles who had different stances. Now that King Tarek had promised Su-yi that he would fully support the new flyer and give the new flyer some privileges, Su-yi was happy about this, but he wasn't that excited. In the end, the Kingdom of Ruhr was someone else's country. Perhaps King Tarek would support the new flyer now, but no one could guarantee how long this support would last. Perhaps he might change his attitude because of the situation. Even King Tarek might suddenly pass away, and the new king of the Kingdom of Ruhr might have a different attitude towards the new flyer. If something like the Lampari Kingdom happened again, the new flyer wouldn't be able to make up for their losses. Of course, Su-yi and the new flyer couldn't give up on eating because of this. There were definitely some worries, but for the development of the new flyer, and also to promote the magic machine industry and the signs, Su-yi still decided to cooperate with the Kingdom of Ruhr. According to his discussion with King Tarek, not only would the new flyer invest more in the Kingdom of Ruhr, they would also gradually open up some household magic machine technology. They would open more joint magic machine factories in the Kingdom of Ruhr. At the same time, the Kingdom of Ruhr would follow Su-yi's suggestion and open several magic machine vocational training schools in the kingdom, especially preparing to train workers in the magic machine industry. Moreover, Su-yi had also agreed with King Tarek that as long as everything went smoothly, the new flyer would gradually transfer the magic machine technology to the Kingdom of Ruhr, allowing the Kingdom of Ruhr to finally be able to make their own magic machines. This was Su-yi's promise to build the foundation of the magic machine industry for the Kingdom of Ruhr. The magic machines were the most important foundation of the magic machine industry. As long as they grasped this, the Kingdom of Ruhr could develop their own magic machines and wouldn't need to rely on the new flyer. But this goal was a bit long-term, so both sides had reached an agreement for now and would seriously consider in the future. Actually, Su-yi didn't have much hope in this long-term cooperation. From the experience of the Lampari Kingdom, because of the backwards political system and the signs, it was hard for many countries to make consistent decisions. Although King Tarek was very supportive of the new flyer, no one could guarantee how long this would last. For Su-yi, the most important core of the new flyer was his personal territory in the Principality of Constantine. Where's Newman? Su-yi looked around and didn't see Newman, who had been waiting outside the palace with Kennard, so he couldn't help feeling a bit strange. A strange look appeared on Kennard's face. Newman said that he would find some connections to ease the tense relationship between you and Ambassador Hakkinen. Oh, is that so? It seems like Newman really does place importance on us. Su-yi revealed a smile. He looked at the two subordinates Newman had brought with him before saying to Kennard, "Since Newman isn't here, we're not in a rush to discuss matters with the Kingdom of Ruhr. Let's go take a look at the store first." "All right." Kennard nodded before getting into the magic sedan with Su-yi. Newman's two subordinates should have received Newman's orders, so they didn't stop the two of them. They just got into a magic sedan and followed the two of them. Su-yi turned back and couldn't help saying with a smile, "Newman's magic sedan should be quite rare in the Kingdom of Ruhr, right?" "Actually, it's not that rare." Kennard shook his head. "According to the company's statistics, our company has sold a total of 746 magic sedans to the Kingdom of Ruhr. Other than the 425 magic sedans that have been bought by the nobles and merchants of the Kingdom of Ruhr, the other 321 magic sedans are currently in Caracas City. I think that we should be able to see another magic sedan soon." There are over 300 in this city. That isn't a small number. Su-yi nodded. Su-yi nodded. But this number is still lacking compared to the total number of magic sedans in Banda City. So the density is even worse. There's no other way since our company has only started selling magic sedans to the Kingdom of Ruhr in the first half of this year. Moreover, because of the tariffs, the price of the magic sedans here is much higher than when we sold them in Banda City, which also affects the sales volume. There was a pure black magic sedan that came from the other side of the street. When it passed by the magic sedan that Su-yi was in, the driver of the black magic sedan looked over. When he saw Su-yi and Kennard in the car, he was clearly surprised. Su-yi gave the other side a smile, and the other side gave a forced smile before speeding off. As for the sales volume, there's no need to rush. I believe that the magic sedans will become popular in the Kingdom of Ruhr sooner or later. Su-yi looked over the black magic sedan that was driving away and looked at the shops and houses on both sides of the street. He found that in these houses, there were many kinds of household magic machines that were being used. It was hot right now, so other than the magic fans that could be seen everywhere, there were also many magic air conditioners, magic refrigerators, and other household magic machines that were popular in summer. On both sides of the road, there were quite a few people riding bicycles. The people on the road were clearly used to this. Look, Kennard, those companies have always been worried that if they lose the Lampari Kingdom market, they won't have anything to eat. But look at this place. The people have clearly accepted the existence of magic machines. The Kingdom of Ruhr's market is even bigger than the Lampari Kingdom's market. That's right, Kennard said with a nod with a smile. With the hard work of our company, we've finally opened a market in the Kingdom of Ruhr. Speaking of this, those companies really know how to take advantage of us. Our company has opened a market, and they've come to take advantage of it. What? You're not satisfied with them? No, I'm just feeling emotional. Kennard shook his head. Sir Chairman, I've worked with you for this long. I'm very clear on your thoughts. You definitely aren't willing to let those companies die like this since they represent the future of the magic machine industry, right? Su-yi laughed. That's right. Very good, Kennard. I've found that there's no problem in letting you manage the company because you know my intentions very well. Kennard shook his head with a bitter smile. That won't do. At least I can't do something as crazy as offending the ambassador of the Kanla Empire just to test the attitude of the Kingdom of Ruhr's king. Su-yi couldn't help breaking out in laughter. Although Kennard didn't say it, he definitely felt that Su-yi's actions were too reckless. So his words were warning Su-yi. Although the magic sedan couldn't drive that fast in Caracas City, it didn't take long for them to pass through most of the city and arrive at the busiest business street in Caracas City. The New Flyers store in Caracas City was also the New Flyers main store in the Kingdom of Ruhr, which was on this business street. The two got out of the car in front of the store, and as soon as they walked in, they heard a very familiar voice. I told you to take it out, so take it out. Don't you know who I am? If you make me unhappy, do you believe that I won't have someone smash your store? Hearing this voice, Su-yi and Kennard looked at each other with bitter smiles. It really was a small world. Chapter 575. Su-yi hesitated a bit before walking in. In order to open the market in the Kingdom of Ruhr, New Flyer had invested quite a bit in Caracas City. Not only did they choose to open this store on the most prosperous street, they had rented a very large store through Newman's connections, placing it in the front of the entire street. But now, in this huge shop, there was no one around. Instead, there was a group of people in different outfits in the middle, forming a circle. From the crowd, there was a familiar voice that kept coming out. Call your store manager out. What kind of broken store is this? I don't have anything I want to buy. Let me tell you, if I can't buy what I want today, your store can just wait to close. Hearing the clerk's voice in the crowd, Su-yi knit his brows and walked in. Ambassador Hakkinen, it hasn't been long since we parted. I never thought that we would meet again. This world really is small. When Su-yi spoke, he attracted everyone's attention. Ambassador Hakkinen turned around and looked at Su-yi. He narrowed his eyes and gave a laugh before revealing a surprised expression. He raised his voice as he said, Isn't this Chairman Su? What? His Majesty is magnanimous and finally let you out? Seeing his expression, Su Yi's heart instantly understood. This guy had clearly come here to cause trouble. Since his goal had been achieved, Su Yi naturally wouldn't provoke him and cause trouble for himself. After thinking about it, he came forward with a smile. Of course His Majesty is magnanimous, but I have to thank Ambassador Hakkinen for being magnanimous and forgiving me for offending you. Sir Ambassador, I was frivolous and ignorant before. I ask for your forgiveness. Since you've come to our company's store, it is our company's honor. As an apology, as long as it's something in this store, you can choose whatever you want and I'll give it to you for free on behalf of the company. What do you think? Ambassador Hakkinen was confused by Su Yi's sudden change in attitude. He seriously looked at Su Yi and found that his smile was very sincere, not having that arrogant look from before. Moreover, he had already received enough compensation from King Tarek. No matter how much of a bastard Ambassador Hakkinen was, he knew that it wasn't a good time to cause trouble for Su Yi. But he had heard that New Flyer had opened a store in Caracas City, so he specially made a trip here. He couldn't just go back without doing anything. If he let Su Yi go this easily, it would make him feel uncomfortable. Thinking of this, Ambassador Hakkinen's eyes turned before he gave a cold snort and said, Chairman Su, it's easy for you to say this. You don't have what I want in your shop. Oh, may I ask what products the Sir Ambassador likes in our company? As long as you say it, I will definitely provide it for you. Su Yi said with a smile. This is what you said. All right, I saw several magic sedans on the road and felt that they weren't bad. As the ambassador of the Kamla Empire, if I don't even have a magic sedan, it would be a loss of my status. Chairman Su, what do you think? Su Yi laughed before nodding. That's right, with the Sir Ambassador status. It isn't suitable for you to take an old horse carriage. Only our Frestec Chamber of Commerce's new magic sedan can match your status and identity. Sir Ambassador can be assured, although this store doesn't have any stock right now, I will immediately have someone bring it over from the company's headquarters. No matter what style the Sir Ambassador likes, we can deliver it to you. Ambassador Hakkinen knit his brows as he looked at Su Yi. Now that Su Yi had this respectful attitude, he didn't have any reason to fly into a rage at all. Moreover, he had scruples about King Tarek's attitude, so he couldn't go too far. After thinking about it, Ambassador Hakkinen raised his hand and pointed around the store. Since we don't have magic sedans right now, give me a few of these things to play with first. Su Yi immediately said with a smile. That's easy, as long as it's a household magic machine here. I'll give you every single one. Ambassador Hakkinen slowly nodded. This. You know, I still have a group of subordinates and many relatives and friends at home. 100 of each household magic machine. What do you think? Even if Hakkinen wanted to rip him off, he never thought that Su Yi would be even more greedy than him. At most he wanted around 10 of each kind, but he never thought that Su Yi would ask for 100 right off the bat. When he was wandering around the store, he had looked at the prices of the household magic machines. The cheapest magic fan cost 6 gold coins each, and a more expensive magic air conditioner cost over 30 gold coins each. If there were 100 of each kind, the total price would be over 20,000 gold coins. Adding in the magic sedans, Su Yi promised. This time Su Yi had given him items worth 30,000 gold coins. After quickly calculating the value of these items, Ambassador Hakkinen's face couldn't sink any longer. He couldn't help revealing a smile as he nodded at Su Yi with a smile. Good, good, good. We'll do this. After saying this, he patted Su Yi's shoulder and praised. Since Chairman Su is an understanding person, then everything can be discussed. All right, we'll write off everything from before. Su Yi nodded with a faint smile. Many thanks for Sir Ambassador's magnanimity. Ambassador Hakkinen gave 2 laughs before his expression suddenly changed. But Chairman Su, the matter between you and me can be written off, but the matter between you and my subordinate can't be written off like this. Su Yi was surprised as he looked at the middle-aged man that Ambassador Hakkinen was pointing at, and his eyes slightly narrowed. With his strong sense of magic and elemental magic, he could easily tell that this middle-aged man should be a magician, and he definitely wasn't weak. This is, I'm here to get justice for my little brother. The middle-aged man said in a deep voice. Little brother? Sui looked at the middle-aged man in surprise. He thought of the magician he had knocked out of the horse carriage and found that the two of them looked similar, instantly understanding. Yes, my younger brother was seriously injured by you and is still unconscious on the bed. Chairman Su, how are you planning to explain this matter? The middle-aged man asked in a serious voice. Justice? Explain? Sui looked over him and couldn't help giving a cold laugh. Your little brother made a move against me first and was very ruthless. In the end, he was heavily injured by me because his skills weren't as good as mine, so I already let him off easy by not taking his life. You're asking for justice for me? What kind of explanation do you want me to give you? This is simply a joke. The middle-aged man's face turned even darker as he looked at Ambassador Hakkinen first. Ambassador Hakkinen took a step back, looking like this matter didn't concern him. The middle-aged man nodded and took a step forward, arriving in front of Sui. He said with a serious look, no matter who is right or wrong, you have heavily injured my little brother. We are all magicians, so in the name of magicians, I formally challenge you. When these words were said, everyone around them gave a shocked cry. Magicians were different from warriors. Magicians always respected their status, but there were rarely two magicians who would duel. This magician's strength wasn't bad, and New Flyers chairman, Su, was also a magician with decent strength. If the two of them were to duel, it would attract everyone's attention. Su, he didn't have that big of a reaction. He just looked at the middle-aged man with a frown before shaking his head. I refuse. The surrounding people gave another shocked cry. The middle-aged man also had a look of surprise. Chairman Suyu, you actually don't care about the dignity of a magician? You actually refuse my challenge. You are simply a disgrace to magicians. Sui gave a shrug. I'm sorry. I am a merchant. My status as a magician is just a side effect. If you want to say it like this, it's up to you. Hearing Su Yi's reply, the surrounding people and the middle-aged man were all stunned. In the signs, the status of magicians and merchants were like heaven and earth. Of course, magicians were the heavens and merchants were the earth. Although there were many magicians who would choose to interact with merchants in order to earn money and even start their own businesses, when it came to their status, everyone would emphasize that they were a magician and not a merchant. In the eyes of magicians, becoming a merchant was because they had no choice and was actually a very shameful act. But Sui was clearly a magician with decent strength, and now he was emphasizing that he was a merchant and instead saying that his status as a magician was just a side effect. This was simply overturning everyone's common sense. The middle-aged man stared blankly at Sui. After a while, he said with difficulty, Chairman Su, you are insulting all magicians. I didn't mean that. And I said this in front of several great magicians, and they didn't express any objections. Do you have the right to question me? The middle-aged man was stunned because he suddenly remembered that there were indeed two great magicians in New Flyer. If he felt that Su Yi's words were insulting all magicians, then the two great magicians were clearly more qualified than him to express their opinions. All right, to be honest, I'm very busy right now and don't have time to duel with you. Seeing that the middle-aged man had nothing to say, Su Yi continued, if you really want to use magicians to solve this problem, all right, there are many magicians in New Flyer who would be willing to replace me. Even if you want to duel with the two great magicians, it's not impossible. Of course, I'm just afraid that you don't dare. Looking at Su Yi's slightly mocking gaze, and then thinking of the hundreds of magicians in the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, as well as the terrifying lineup of two great magicians in charge, the middle-aged man's face turned ashen. Chapter 576. After Ambassador Hakkinen left with the middle-aged magician, Kennard couldn't help saying to Su Yi with a frown, Sir Chairman, I understand that you don't want to offend Ambassador Hakkinen, but giving him this many things at once isn't a bit too much? It's less than 30,000 gold coins worth of things. It isn't considered much. Su Yi said with a smile. It depends on who it's for, Kennard said with a serious look. If it's something that can bring benefits to our company, then 30,000 gold coins isn't considered much. But this Ambassador Hakkinen, I don't see how he can provide us with any help. Sui laughed. Although I feel that Ambassador Hakkinen is useless like you, we still have to consider his status. He is only an ambassador from the Kamla Empire to the Kingdom of Ruhr. He can't be considered an important character, right? Kennard's brows knit even tighter, looking very confused. To be blunt, since he was sent to a small country like the Kingdom of Ruhr as an ambassador, it means that he isn't important in the Kamla Empire. Investing in him, I'm afraid it isn't worth it. That's where you're wrong. He shook his head. This Ambassador Hakkinen is ignorant and has low abilities, but being able to become an ambassador is already a problem. Although the Kingdom of Ruhr is the same as the Lampari Kingdom, being a small country on the edge of the continent, an ambassador is still an ambassador. He represents the will and image of the Kamla Empire. Not just anyone can become an ambassador. Kennard was a bit surprised. Could it be that this Ambassador Hakkinen has some special abilities? He doesn't have any special abilities. He revealed a faint smile. But this Sir Ambassador has a very outstanding older sister who is currently the most favored concubine of the Kamla Empire's emperor. Now do you understand that a fellow like him can also become an ambassador? Kennard suddenly understood. However, on second thought, he felt that something was amiss. Sir Chairman, this is your first time in the Kingdom of Ruhr. How could you be so clear on Ambassador Hakkinen? Could it be that you've collected information about the Kingdom of Ruhr through other channels? No, His Majesty King Tarek told me all the information about this ambassador. Kennard was stunned. King Tarek told you? Why would he tell you this information? This is also one of the ways he's showing his sincerity, Sui said with a smile. According to my observations, King Tarek is also very dissatisfied with this ambassador, but he tolerates him because of the Kamla Empire. Kennard shook his head. I'm afraid no one can stand this kind of guy. Don't look down on him too much, Sui said. No matter how useless he is, because of his identity, it is very likely that he will be a breakthrough point for our new flyer to enter the Kamla Empire. You think that I've given him too many household magic machines, but I feel that it's too little. Think about it, Kennard. With this ambassador's personality, if he receives the magic sedan and household magic machines, what will he do after returning to the Kamla Empire? Kennard thought about it before his eyes lit up. I understand. This Lord Ambassador would definitely brag about it. This is equal to giving our new flyer a very effective advertisement. Now you understand why I'm this generous, right? Sui said with a smile. Kennard nodded and couldn't help saying in an emotional voice, Sir Chairman, I have to admit that in terms of foresight, I'm far from being able to compare to you. When you knew that Ambassador Hakkinen was in the motorcade, did you already think of this? Sui revealed a faint smile and waved his hand, not replying to this question. All right, don't flatter me. Before Newman comes looking for us, let's take care of the things here first. The new flyer's main store in Caracas City had been open for over a year, but this was Sui's first time personally inspecting it. Before Sui came, they had already received the notice. They knew that Sui was here to evaluate the magic machine market in the Kingdom of Ruhr, so they had already made their preparations. With Sui's order, the manager of the main store took out the accounts that had been prepared ahead of time and gave them to Sui to look over. However, Sui didn't care that much about the accounts. He just looked over it before giving it to Kennard to look over, and he focused on the sales of the main store. Based on the sales statistics, it could be seen that before New Flyer opened a store in the Kingdom of Ruhr, there were already various Shinfei brand magic machines circulating in the Kingdom of Ruhr. But most of them were bought by Newman through New Flyer, bringing them back to the Kingdom of Ruhr to sell. So the sales volume wasn't that big, with the highest sales volume being 200,000 gold coins in a month. When New Flyer opened a store in Caracas City and set up branches in several other cities in the Kingdom of Ruhr, the sales volume of Shinfei brand magic machines in the Kingdom of Ruhr exploded. Just last month, there were a shocking 370,000 Frestec brand household magic machines that had been sold from the main store and the various branches, with a total sales of over 5 million gold coins. Although the profits were lower due to the tariffs imposed by the Kingdom of Ruhr compared to when they were sold in the Lampari Kingdom, the total profits still exceeded 2 million gold coins. As the popularity of household magic machines continued to increase in the Kingdom of Ruhr, the sales volume was also gradually increasing. In the first month, the sales volume was less than 100,000 gold coins, but last month, it exceeded 700,000 gold coins. And this was only New Flyer's results in the Kingdom of Ruhr within a year. If the people of the Kingdom of Ruhr recognized Shinfei brand magic machines as time passed, the sales volume would continue to increase rapidly. Before the situation in the Lampari Kingdom changed, the Lampari Kingdom was New Flyer's #1 market. According to the current trend, the Kingdom of Ruhr would soon surpass the Lampari Kingdom and become the most important market for New Flyer. However, Sui pondered for a moment and said to the president of the Kingdom of Ruhr branch of New Flyer, Marlock Cool, from next month onwards, set up some household magic machines produced by other companies in the various branches of our Chamber of Commerce and carry out related promotions. I guarantee that these household magic machines of other brands will also have good sales volume. Cool was stunned. Why? This is our own branch. Why do we have to sell things from other companies? This is an agreement between our Chamber of Commerce and other companies. Just do as I say. Although Cool was filled with questions, Sui had a high prestige in New Flyer, so he didn't dare raise any questions. He could only secretly mutter in his heart. After Sui explained a few things to him, and the Rudsun branch's development plan changed, Newman quickly came over to ask about it. Seeing that Sui and Kennard were safe, Newman let out a long sigh of relief. Chairman Sue, I heard that Ambassador Hakkinen came to your New Flyer's main store, and I was scared to death. But it's a good thing that you didn't meet him. No, I met him, and we chatted for a while. Sue said with a smile. Newman's expression changed before a look of doubt appeared on his face. He looked over Sue and asked, then, Chairman Sue, he didn't cause trouble for you? Sue gave a shrug. Ambassador Hakkinen is a reasonable person. I've already solved the misunderstanding between us. Now that we're fine, we've even become good friends. Newman looked at Sue with a strange look. Ambassador Hakkinen couldn't be related to the word reasonable, no matter what. So how did Sue deal with him? But Newman threw away this question. Anyway, to him, it was fine as long as Sue was fine. When he came to find Sue, he had already received a decree from King Tarek. He was ordered to use his status as the Rudsun Chamber of Commerce's chairman to discuss a comprehensive cooperation with Sue. Receiving this decree meant that King Tarek had completely accepted the Frestek Chamber of Commerce, clearly showing his support for cooperating with the Frestek Chamber of Commerce. This was very good news for Newman. It was because he had introduced the various magic machines produced by the New Flyer to the Kingdom of Ruhr that he had been promoted. Now that His Majesty had decided to cooperate with the New Flyer, as the person who had been with the New Flyer the longest and understood the New Flyer the most, as well as being the person who understood the magic machines the most in the Kingdom of Ruhr, he was the person in charge of this cooperation. Based on the king's decree, it could be seen that His Majesty placed great importance on this cooperation. As long as he could handle this cooperation, it was very likely that His Majesty would appreciate him and he would be promoted in the future. It wasn't even a dream for him to reach the peak of the Kingdom of Ruhr. Thinking of this, Newman's attitude towards Sue became very gentle as he said with a smile, Chairman Sue, according to His Majesty's decree, our Rudsun Chamber of Commerce will be the official representative of the kingdom to cooperate with your New Flyer. May I ask Chairman Sue, which project should we discuss first? Sue thought about it before pointing to the north. Let's take a look at your Rudsun Chamber of Commerce's factory first. Chairman Newman, I've heard that the quality of the magic machines produced by your factory is very worrying. Newman's expression became very awkward. Chapter 577. Facts proved that King Tarek's support for the New Flyer wasn't just a verbal promise. In the negotiations that Su-yi represented the New Flyer and the Kingdom of Ruhr, the New Flyer had obtained a lot of benefits. The various organizations of the Kingdom of Ruhr had all supported the New Flyer's requests without any reservations. This was clearly the special approval of King Tarek. In just half a month in the Kingdom of Ruhr, Su-yi represented the New Flyer to sign 3 large cooperation agreements with the Kingdom of Ruhr. First, New Flyer would cooperate with 5 cities in the Kingdom of Ruhr. They would set up 20 household magic machine factories in those 5 cities, which would cover all the household magic machines that New Flyer currently produced. According to the agreement, the Frestek Chamber of Commerce would provide funding and technology, while the Rudsun Kingdom would provide preferential land and policies. In the end, the Frestek Chamber of Commerce would have the absolute advantage with 70% of the profits, as well as having absolute control over the 20 factories. But in return, New Flyer promised to share their technology with the Kingdom of Ruhr. Moreover, they would only be allowed to recruit local workers from the Kingdom of Ruhr, and New Flyer would only provide technical personnel. At the same time, New Flyer would also take on the task of training the workers of the Kingdom of Ruhr in magic machine manufacturing. So they would open a magic machine vocational training school in Caracas City. This magic machine vocational training school would be completely controlled by the Kingdom of Ruhr. New Flyer would only provide information and technology. They didn't need to do anything else. Second, New Flyer reached an agreement with the southernmost port city of the Kingdom of Ruhr, Misty City. New Flyer would invest in the expansion of Misty City's port. After the port was built, all the money would belong to Misty City in name, and Misty City would have absolute control, but New Flyer would have absolute priority in using 7 of the 10 piers. As long as New Flyer's ships came, the other ships would have to make way for them. Although this wasn't written in the agreement, according to the private discussion between Su-yi and Misty City City Lord, Misty City would keep 2 piers open at any time for New Flyer to use. When Su-yi and Misty City City Lord were discussing this agreement, Misty City City Lord was very confused by Su-yi's insistence on this private agreement. King Tarek specifically gave instructions to Misty City. Although Misty City was asked to fully cooperate with New Flyer and try to satisfy New Flyer's requests, he emphasized that they must ensure that the port's sovereignty remained in the hands of the Kingdom of Ruhr. Su-yi's suggestion was already a bit of a borderline ball. If the king were to investigate further, then it would very likely be for naught. However, under the attack of New Flyer's gold coins, Misty City City Lord finally chose to agree to Su-yi's request. In any case, this would still retain the sovereignty of the port. All they needed to do was to make some changes during the actual operation. Although Misty City was the largest port city in the southern part of the Kingdom of Ruhr, for the signs where shipping was almost non-existent, there wouldn't be many ships docking at Misty City in a year. As for New Flyer spending 3 million gold coins to build this large port, Misty City's City Lord couldn't understand it at all. Even if King Tarek supported New Flyer's proposal, it was only because building a port would only benefit the Kingdom of Ruhr and wouldn't bring any harm. He also couldn't understand why New Flyer insisted on doing this. The third large cooperation agreement wasn't only related to New Flyer. In this agreement, Su-yi represented New Flyer in requesting the Rudsun Kingdom to open up customs for 30 companies, including New Flyer. In other words, it was to open up the internal market of the Kingdom of Ruhr, allowing the products of these 30 companies to freely circulate in the Kingdom of Ruhr. These 30 companies were, of course, the magic machine companies that had developed in Banna City before coming to the Black Rice Wasteland with New Flyer. It should be said that the last agreement was the one that Su-yi cared about the most. He wasn't worried that the Kingdom of Ruhr wouldn't cooperate with New Flyer. Rather, he was worried that the Kingdom of Ruhr would protect their own magic machine industry and reject these other companies. But Su-yi had underestimated King Tarek's courage. After hearing Su-yi's request, King Tarek only used 3 days to make a decision. He would open up customs for the 30 companies, including New Flyer, and give them preferential treatment when entering the Kingdom of Ruhr, ensuring that these products would circulate normally. But King Tarek also made strict rules. Other than the 36 companies in this agreement, the Kingdom of Ruhr wouldn't accept any new companies in the future. At the same time, King Tarik requested that other than the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce, the other 35 companies had to be like the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce, building at least 2 factories in the Rudsun Kingdom cities. Sui naturally agreed to this request. Now that the other companies had lost their largest market in the Lampari Kingdom, they could only rely on the Drake Duchy, the Mirando Duchy, and the Principality of Constantine, which were still immature in small markets, so they were in a very difficult situation. Now that the Kingdom of Ruhr was willing to open their markets to them, it was no different from saving them. Moreover, the cooperation between New Flyer and the Kingdom of Ruhr was more beneficial to New Flyer in terms of profits. So how could the other 35 companies not agree? In addition to these 3 important agreements, Sui also represented New Flyer to reach some smaller agreements with the Kingdom of Ruhr. For example, New Flyer would cooperate with the Magic Senate of the Kingdom of Ruhr to research and develop some magic machine-related technologies. For example, the Kingdom of Ruhr would follow New Flyer's request and search for some dwarf tribes in the Kingdom of Ruhr. At the same time, they would try to contact the elven tribes and let New Flyer recruit them. Another example was, in short, half a month later, after Sui and Kennard attended King Tarik banquet and left Caracas City with Newman, the 2 of them were very satisfied with their trip to the Kingdom of Ruhr. Sui turned back to look at Caracas City from the back window of the magic sedan and couldn't help saying in an emotional voice, "It has to be said, in terms of vision, courage, foresight, and action, King Tarik is even better than His Majesty Lampuri 13th, not to mention King Eric." Kennard on the side shook his head with a bitter smile. "There's no other way. King Eric hasn't shown any outstanding abilities before, and His Majesty Lampuri 13th's favorite successor was Her Highness 70. Moreover, now that he's the king, the Lampari Kingdom is controlled by the Stag family, so he can't do anything even if he wants to." Sui gave a laugh. "If those fellows keep messing around in the Lampari Kingdom, I think the situation will only get worse. Although the rebellion in Kalibo City has been quelled, based on the information from various sources, the situation in the Lampari Kingdom is already quite bad. As long as there's a single mistake, there might be internal strife." Kennard was silent for a bit before shaking his head. "That isn't certain. Sir Chairman, do you know how the rebellion in Kalibo City was quelled?" "I've heard that Kalibo City's city lord surrendered. Is that true?" "He did surrender. But the reason why he chose to surrender was because King Eric stopped the kingdom's garrison that Duke Stag had sent out. He said that he wouldn't allow a civil war to happen in the kingdom and wanted to solve this matter peacefully. Then after King Eric promised that he wouldn't pursue this matter, Kalibo City's city lord chose to surrender." "Promise?" Sui's expression became strange, and he couldn't help shaking his head. "Kalibo City's city lord isn't a 3-year-old child. He actually believed this promise?" Kennard revealed a faint smile. "Sir Chairman, King Eric made this promise as both a king and a noble. If he went back on his promise, it would be a serious blow to his prestige. So unless it was necessary, he wouldn't go back on his promise. The facts are like this. Now that Kalibo City's rebellion has been quelled, King Eric doesn't intend to pursue this matter at all. Then again, Kalibo City's rebellion was just a signal from the nobles opposing the Stag family. Now that King Eric has given them the reaction they want, naturally no one will cause trouble." Sui slightly knit his brows. "If it's like this, doesn't that mean that King Eric is suppressing the Stag family? The Stag family doesn't have any reaction to this? At least the Stag family doesn't have any opinions on this matter right now." Duke Stag not only recalled the second army that was preparing to attack Kalibo City, he also publicly said that the stability of the Lampari Kingdom is above all else, and that the Stag family will fully support King Eric's decisions. After saying this, Kennard suddenly became excited. "Do you know, Sir Chairman, King Eric is much more diligent than before. Not only is he expressing his opinions on the various matters of the kingdom, he is also very strong. He rejected several of Duke Stag's suggestions and is gradually showing the dignity and boldness of a king. I feel that as long as he keeps this up, Our Lampari kingdom has hope of becoming stronger." Seeing Kennard's happy smile, Sui didn't have any thoughts of agreeing. First, he was someone who transmigrated from Earth, so he didn't have much of a sense of belonging to the Lampari kingdom. Naturally, he wouldn't be as happy as Kennard about the changes in the Lampari kingdom. Second, he didn't think that King Eric's change would be good. If he really had the ability and boldness, how could the new flyer be forced out of the Lampari kingdom? If he could have absolute control over the Lampari kingdom like King Tarek and support the new flyer's investment in the kingdom of Ruhr would be over 10 million gold coins, which would be placed in the Lampari kingdom. This would be a great help to the development of the Lampari kingdom. The most important problem was that he wanted to suppress the Stag family and balance the Lampari kingdom, trying to control the Lampari kingdom. This idea wasn't bad, but could he really do it? Chapter 578. Eric took a deep breath and closed his eyes to rest for about a minute. When he opened his eyes again, he picked up a towel soaked in cold water from the basin beside him and wiped his face hard twice. Reinvigorated, he continued to review the documents. Since he stopped Duke Stag from sending the Second Army to deal with the rebellion in Kalibo City, it was like Eric had suddenly understood something. He had a new understanding of the various government affairs that he felt were messy before, and now he didn't have his own opinions when dealing with them. Accordingly, he relied on Duke Stag less and less. If there wasn't anything important, he wouldn't take the initiative to summon Duke Stag and would make his own decisions most of the time. Of course, he would also seek guidance from the various nobles and ministers in the kingdom. At the same time, he worked hard to read all sorts of books to strengthen his own learning. He even frequently left the palace to disguise himself and blend into the commoners to observe the situation at close range. In short, he was more and more immersed in his role as the king and was deeply proud and honored to be a king. Of course, he also deeply felt the pressure. The more he understood government affairs, the more Eric regretted the decisions he made before. Based on the data from all sides, the biggest mistake he made was not keeping the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. Half the year had passed, and the Lampari Kingdom's current revenue was less than 1 million gold coins. Based on the current trend, by the end of the year, the kingdom's annual revenue would barely surpass 1 million gold coins, and it definitely wouldn't surpass 1.5 million gold coins. Compared to the past few years when it was at least 2 million gold coins a year and even 3 million gold coins the year before last, the current Lampari kingdom was much poorer. Eric was much more familiar with government affairs now, so naturally he knew why this was the case. When New Flyer was here, 2/3 of the Lampari kingdom's annual revenue came from the magic machine industry, represented by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce. Just Banta City alone paid close to 1 million gold coins in taxes each year, which was almost equal to the annual revenue of the Lampari kingdom. It had to be said, New Flyer played the most important role in this. But since New Flyer left the Lampari kingdom, most of the magic machine companies in Banta City and the Lampari kingdom, led by New Flyer, also left the Lampari kingdom. This caused the influence of the magic machine industry in the Lampari kingdom to plummet, so naturally the taxes they received greatly decreased. Of course, this was also related to the 10 companies that controlled the magic machine industry in the country. According to the statistics, the 10 chambers of commerce were currently suffering losses due to the downturn in the industry, so the taxes they paid were extremely pitiful. But Eric was very clear that although the magic machine industry in the Lampuri kingdom had been greatly affected by the Frestec Chamber of Commerce and the other companies leaving, it was impossible for them to lose money in this industry. According to Eric's secret information, the Rockefeller Chamber of Commerce had earned over 200,000 gold coins last month. The Rockefeller Chamber of Commerce had reported a loss of 70,000 gold coins to the business department last month. So not only did the Rockefeller Chamber of Commerce not pay the 80,000 gold coins in taxes, they even received a special subsidy of 30,000 gold coins from the business department. This was equal to the Rockefeller Chamber of Commerce earning close to 120,000 gold coins out of thin air. As for where the 120,000 gold coins went, Every time he thought of the Stag family backing the Rockefeller Chamber of Commerce, Eric couldn't help feeling a bit angry. These vermin of the kingdom. Eric scolded in his heart, but then he smiled bitterly and helplessly. Although Duke Stag had been very obedient to him during this time, not going against any of his ideas and seriously following all his orders, Eric was very clear that his control over the kingdom was far from enough. Before, his strength wasn't enough to deal with the stubborn, conservative nobles of the Stag family. Eric could only endure for now. Before this, the only thing he could do was to take back the power that belonged to him from Duke Stag's hands bit by bit. Do. There was knocking on the door. Eric looked at the door and couldn't help revealing a smile. Now, Duke Stag had finally learned to knock on the door when entering his room. "Please come in," Eric said in a loud voice. The door was softly pushed open and Duke Stag walked in. "Your Majesty." Duke Stag gave Eric a bow. Duke Stag bowed to Eric with a bow. "May I ask what matter you have for suddenly summoning me?" I've just written a decree. Take a look." Eric handed over a piece of paper that hadn't dried yet. Duke Stag took it and looked it over before deeply knitting his brows. This decree was for the Magic Machine Industry Management Department. The summary of the contents was that Eric wanted to reform the Magic Machine Industry Management Department. He wanted to re-examine every magic machine company in the kingdom under the jurisdiction of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department. The first thing he wanted to do was to examine the qualifications of each company. If a magic machine company wasn't doing well, the Magic Machine Industry Management Department should first think of a way to turn this company's losses into profits. If the Magic Machine Industry Management Department couldn't do this, it would be the management department's negligence. If this company didn't have enough ability and couldn't make a profit, in order to promote the healthy development of the Lampari Kingdom's magic machine industry, the Magic Machine Industry Management Department had the right to ban this company's business and order them to change. On the surface, this decree wasn't wrong. But thinking about it, because the main person in charge of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department was a member of the Stag family, and the 10 companies under the department already controlled the magic machine industry in the Lampari Kingdom, this decree was without a doubt targeted at them. But these companies represented the interests of the conservative nobles led by the Stag family. Eric doing this was clearly targeting them. Duke Stag looked up and narrowed his eyes as he looked at Eric. "Your Majesty, this might not be appropriate." "Oh, what's wrong?" "Even if some companies don't have enough ability and can't make a profit, they're still contributing to the development of the kingdom's magic machine industry. If we directly take away their business qualifications, it would be too much of a blow to their enthusiasm." "Your Majesty, didn't you say that it would be best if every city in the kingdom could become like Banner City? Since it's like this, we should give them more encouragement." Eric gave a cold laugh in his heart. Duke Stag's so-called encouragement was funding those companies from the kingdom's finances. The kingdom's finances had already fallen, and if they took out a part of it for this so-called encouragement, the kingdom's finances would be stretched even further. After sitting in the king's seat for a long time, Eric was very clear on the importance of money. There were many things that needed to be improved in the Lampari Kingdom, but each one required a large amount of investment. Eric was trying to take back the money that belonged to the kingdom's finances from the 10 companies, or rather from the conservative nobles, which was for the development of the kingdom. The market is like a battlefield. If a company can't make a profit, it means that they aren't suited for this battlefield. Instead of wasting the kingdom's finances to help them survive, it is better to follow the rules of the market and let them die naturally. "Duke Stag, don't you think so?" Eric asked back. Duke Stag silently looked at Eric for a while. When Eric's heart was filled with unease, he suddenly revealed a smile and slowly said with a nod, "Your Majesty is right. We should do this." Hearing this response, Eric almost didn't dare believe his ears. His decree was clearly aimed at the nobles represented by the Stag family. Eric was already prepared for Duke Stag's strong opposition, so he had thought of an excuse ahead of time. He didn't even hesitate to act tough to carry out this decree, but he never thought that Duke Stag would agree. Eric looked at Duke Stag in a daze as all kinds of questions appeared in his heart. "Your Majesty, is there anything else important?" Duke Stagg suddenly asked. Ah, no, nothing for now." Eric shook his head as he spoke in a daze. "Since your Majesty doesn't have anything else to say, then I'll be leaving." Even after Duke Stagg walked out and closed the door, Eric was still in a daze, unable to react. Why didn't Duke Stagg oppose this? Could it be that he really accepted it like this? Eric's heart was filled with surprise and joy. Could it be that this meant that he had finally established the prestige of a king, and Duke Stagg didn't oppose him? Duke Stagg, who walked out, didn't have an excited look on his face. Rather, he had a very calm look. However, when he saw a little boy running over from the other end of the corridor, a gentle smile appeared on his face. "Your Highness, His Majesty, is currently working. You can't disturb him right now." Duke Stagg picked up the little boy with a smile as he spoke to him. This little boy was Eric's eldest son, His Highness Prince William. He was only 5 years old this year, but he was already very smart. There were many people who considered him the best choice for the next king. Why is royal father working again? Prince William pouted, looking very dissatisfied. Only knowing how to work every day. Is being a king this busy? Duke Stagg revealed a smile. "That's right, being a king is this busy. Your Highness, do you want His Majesty to rest?" "Of course I want him to rest. That way he has time to play with me," Prince William said. "Then how about we let him have a good rest?" Duke Stagg's smile was still warm, but there was a cold glow in his narrowed eyes. Chapter 579. After ending the discussion with the Kingdom of Ruhr, Su, Yi, and Kennard left the Kingdom of Ruhr at the same time. Kennard went to Ampreston Town in Mirando Duchy to inspect the progress of the new flyer factory there. Su, Yi followed his plan and entered the Lampari Kingdom. It had been close to half a year since he left Bana City. When Su, Yi came back this time, he couldn't help feeling emotional. Although from the outside, Banta City didn't seem to have changed much compared to when he left, it was because it didn't change that Su-Yi was filled with emotions. Thinking of when he and the new flyer were in Banta City would change every day. If they didn't see each other for half a year, it would have completely changed. But now that Su-Yi had left for half a year, Banta City didn't change at all. It could be seen that Banta City had entered a stagnant state in half a year and didn't develop at all. This city that had always been filled with vitality in the past few years had now fallen into a deathly silence. Seeing the cracked falling rain road outside the city because it wasn't maintained at all, Su-Yi couldn't help shaking his head. This road could be considered the most important road in Bana City in the past few years. It was even called the Road to Wealth by many people in Bana City. There were countless horse carriages and magic cars that went back and forth on this road every day, as well as countless people that went back and forth on it. But now, Su-Yi had been standing on the side of this road for 10 minutes, and he had only seen 3 horse carriages running across it. 2 of them were clearly the most ordinary horse carriages, and only one of them was a horse carriage filled with goods. Looking at the falling rain road that connected to the falling rain valley to the west, Su-Yi turned to the east. He could vaguely see a bit of Banta City in the distance, and he couldn't help shaking his head. No matter how close his relationship with this city was, now that he was separated from this city, it was none of his business what this city would become. He had neither the ability nor the right to control it. No matter what the Lampari Kingdom did to Bana City, the consequences would be borne by Banta City and the Lampari Kingdom. Su-Yi didn't need to care. But for Su-Yi, there were some people he had to pay attention to, and that was the students of Baron Richter Magic Academy. More than 3 years ago, New Flyer set up a special bursary fund at Baron Richter Magic Academy to support the students and encourage them to continue their studies. Now that more than 3 years had passed, 2 batches of students who had received help from the New Flyer bursary fund had graduated early. Most of them eventually chose to work at the New Flyer. Most of the magicians who were responsible for drawing magic arrays for the various magic machines in New Flyer were students of the Baron Richter Magic Academy. Now that 3 years had passed, the batch of students who had received the most help from the bursary fund had graduated this year. Su especially came back to Bana City this time to personally meet these students. The two batches of students who had graduated were normal students of the Magic Academy. So, to Sui, they weren't that different from the magicians that new flyer recruited. But the batch of students who had graduated this year had been instructed by Sui since the beginning. While studying magic, they had also been studying mechanical theory. At the same time, they had been studying the combination of magic and mechanical theory for 3 years. In these 3 years, the new flyer had created many practical opportunities for these students. Before they even graduated from the Baron Richter Magic Academy, they already had a good foundation in magic machine theory and practice. This kind of magician was what Sui truly valued. Magic mechanical engineers who had both magic and mechanical knowledge. Of course, they were just substitutes. If they could work at the new flyer for several years, Sui believed that not long after, they would be able to train magic mechanical engineers who could be of use. Sui's actions at the Baron Richter Magic Academy were very smooth. The Baron Richter Magic Academy had always received funding from the new flyer. Even if the new flyer had left the Lampari Kingdom in the past year, they had never lacked funds. So no matter what, the Baron Richter Magic Academy had always supported Sui and the new flyer. Now that the new flyer was reaping the fruits of their labor, the Baron Richter Magic Academy was filled with joy and didn't have any thoughts of rejecting them. The students were even more excited. They could even be considered impatient. They had received funding from the new flyer for 3 years. Whether it was emotionally or under the constraints of the original agreement, they had already confirmed that they would work at the new flyer after graduation. Moreover, they had also learned a lot about mechanical engineering in the past 3 years while studying magic. This made them fully aware that the most suitable job for them was to work on magic machines. And when it came to magic machines, which company in the signs could be compared to the new flyer? The new flyer's salary was high, the treatment was good, and the benefits were even more varied. Being able to work at the new flyer was the dream of many people. Now that they had the opportunity to directly choose to work at the new flyer, no one would think of rejecting it. Therefore, almost all the students who had received funding from the new flyer were extremely welcoming towards Sui's arrival. Usually, the graduation ceremony of the students would be a little sad, and there would even be some sentimental little girls who would cry because of the departure of their classmates. However, the graduation ceremony of Baron Richter Magic Academy this year was a scene of joy and harmony, which was very different from the previous years. However, this peaceful atmosphere had been destroyed by a group of fully armed Bana City guards who had suddenly charged into the school. "What are you doing?" Seeing that the one leading the city guards was the Banta City Guard Commander Chopin, the Baron Richter Magic Academy's Principal Fording was shocked. What had happened that the commander of the city guard army would personally come out? However, Chopin completely ignored Fording's question. He turned around, and his eyes locked on his Sui, who was surrounded by a group of students. With a wave of his hand, the city guards behind him came forward and pushed aside the surrounding students, surrounding Sui in the center. Looking at the surrounding city guards who were on high alert and filled with hostility, everyone was stunned. Sui was even more confused. He looked at Chopin in surprise and asked, "Commander Chopin, what are you doing? Could it be that I've done something wrong?" Although the Shinfei merchants had been forced to leave the Lampari Kingdom by the Magic Machine Industry Management Department, this was the department's problem. Whether it was the new flyer or Sui, they couldn't find any fault with this. Not to mention that the Lampari Kingdom's officials weren't willing to make things this awkward. So Sui and the new flyer could be considered to have peacefully left the Lampari Kingdom. As for the Lampari Kingdom's officials, Sui was still a citizen of the Lampari Kingdom, and the new flyer was still a company of the Lampari Kingdom. If Sui wanted to return to the Lampari Kingdom, it was completely up to him. He had returned several times in the past without any problems. So why did this suddenly happen today? Chopin's expression was serious as he loudly said to Sui, "Sui, I advise you not to resist in vain and obediently surrender. Otherwise, we have the right to kill you on the spot." "Kill me on the spot?" Sui couldn't help smiling. He turned to look at the city guard around him and shook his head as he said, "I say, Commander Chopin, you should know my magic power. Don't you think it's funny saying these words?" Chopin obviously understood this, so his expression was slightly nervous. He paused and shouted, Su-yi, I'm warning you. No matter how strong your magic strength is, you're only one person. You can't contend against the entire Lampari kingdom. If you're smart, surrender obediently, and you might be able to keep your life. If you really dare to resist, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Sui shrugged and looked around at the dean, director, teachers, and students of Baron Ricto Magic Academy. He found that they were just like him and had a baffled expression. I say, Commander Chopin, you keep saying that you want to arrest me. Shouldn't you at least tell me what crime I've committed? You want to arrest me without any reason. That's not justifiable, right? Chopin's expression sank. Su-yi, you've committed the most serious crime of treason. It was originally considered a heinous crime, but His Majesty the King has given you a special favor and exempted you from the death penalty. As long as you immediately come with us to see His Majesty the King, you can keep your life. As soon as his voice fell, there was an uproar around. Treason? When did Su-yi commit treason? Su-yi was even more baffled. I committed treason? What treason? When you see His Majesty the King, you'll naturally know the specific crime. Right now, you just need to obediently surrender. Chopin sternly said, I'm warning you again, don't try to resist. Otherwise, you'll be charged with treason and will be wanted by the entire kingdom. All of the businesses that New Flyer has left in the kingdom will be confiscated by the kingdom's parliament. So I advise you to think it over carefully. Su-yi sneered in his heart. After all this time, these guys from the Lampari kingdom even wanted to take over the businesses that he had left behind. They really didn't leave him any leeway. Then he felt that it was a bit strange. Previously, the Lampari kingdom's attitude towards him and the New Flyer had always been very lenient. Although they pushed him aside, they never pushed him to the brink. Even a few months ago, the Lampari kingdom's attitude towards the New Flyer had clearly eased up. Last month, in 2 cities, they even took the initiative to ask the New Flyer to build a joint venture factory. All of these signs showed that the Lampari kingdom's officials wanted to restore their relationship with the New Flyer. Su-yi guessed that King Eric's attitude had changed, which was why there were these changes. But now, the sudden charge of treason clearly wanted to completely block Su-yi and the New Flyer's path back to the Lampari kingdom. Could it be that King Eric's attitude had suddenly changed? Chopin didn't give Su-yi more time to think. As soon as his voice fell, he waved his hand, and the city guard surrounding Su-yi stepped forward. Looking at their posture, they were clearly prepared to directly restrain Su-yi. Su-yi frowned. The magic in his body quickly circulated as he prepared to make a move. It was impossible for him to obediently let these city guards capture him. He wasn't sure of King Eric's current attitude. He could still freely advance and retreat here, but if he really went to Anvilmar City, there were enough people in Anvilmar City to restrain him. But this created another problem. It was impossible for the Lampari kingdom to not be aware of his magic strength. Yet they sent a small group of city guards to claim that they wanted to capture him. This was clearly an impossible task. Then what was the Lampari kingdom thinking? Could it be that they simply wanted to force him out of the Lampari kingdom? While Su-yi's mind was filled with countless thoughts, suddenly the sound of horse hooves could be heard outside the school. A moment later, a neat row of cavalry galloped in from the school's gate. Seeing the face of the cavalry leader, Su-yi was stunned. It can't be. Why is she here? Chapter 580. The leading cavalry was the captain of Seveni's personal guards, Murloc. When a New Flyer worked with Seveni's personal guards to clean up the beastmen on the Black Rice Wasteland, the captain of the 570's personal guards was him. Su-yi had met him several times, so he knew that he had a high position in Seveni's heart. Otherwise, she wouldn't have given him full responsibility for such an important operation. After the operation on the Black Rice Wasteland, Murloc had led his team back to Seveni's territory. Now that he suddenly appeared here, there was only one possibility, which was that Seveni was also here. As expected, as soon as this thought appeared in Su-yi's mind, A pure white magic sedan quickly drove through the gates of Baron Ricto Magic Academy. It went through the path opened by Murloc's cavalry and came to the side of the city guards around Sui. It only stopped when it almost hit one of the city guards. Sui was stunned. There was no doubt that this magic sedan was the one he gave 70, but with 70's personality, she was very calm when driving the magic sedan. So how could she be this wild like this? Could it be that it wasn't 70 in the car? But when the door opened, 70 came out. After seeing 70's face, Sui was stunned again. Normally 70 would have a warm smile on her face, making people feel close to her at first glance. But now 70 had a rare cold expression. Her face was like ice, and there was a bone-chilling chill in her eyes. After getting out of the car, 70's cold eyes looked over the city guards surrounding Sui. There was a complicated look on her face as she coldly roared, "Move aside." The city guards looked at each other in blank dismay. Even if they didn't recognize 70, just based on the formation of the cavalry and the strong might coming from 70, they knew that this young girl in front of them definitely wasn't a normal person. Chopin on the side complained in his heart. Of course, he recognized 70 and was even more clear on the relationship between 70 and Sui. Although he didn't have any hopes of capturing Sui today, if Her Highness 70 suddenly interfered, it would be hard for him. After hesitating a bit, Chopin came over and gave a cough. He revealed an awkward expression as he said to 70, "Your Highness, this move." 70 coldly cut him off. Chopin and Sui were both stunned. Chopin never thought that Her Highness would have such a strong attitude, but Sui was surprised that 70 would have this kind of attitude. With Sui's understanding of 70, she wasn't someone who did things forcefully. She had a gentle personality and was known for being kind to people. Based on how long Sui had been in contact with her, this was reflected even more. There were many times when 70 didn't seem like a princess because she was too gentle, so she lacked a bit of dignity. But now, the cold-faced 70 revealed a different kind of dignity, revealing the style of the royal family. Chopin swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but 70 suddenly raised her hand, and the cavalry behind her raised their weapons, aiming at the city guards surrounding Sui. The faces of the city guards turned pale. They were just normal city guards of Banda City. Their battle strength couldn't compare to the regular army of the Lampari Kingdom, so naturally, they couldn't compare to the elite royal guards. If Her Highness 70 really gave the order, they definitely wouldn't be able to resist. Moreover, even if Her Highness 70 really gave the order to kill them, they could only die in vain. There definitely wouldn't be anyone who would cry out for them. It was a good thing that Chopin was very clear on this fact. Seeing the deep chill on Her Highness 70's face, his expression changed several times before finally giving a sigh. He lowered his head and waved his hand at the city guards surrounding Sui. It was like the city guards had been pardoned, moving aside like the tide. They all moved far away from 70 and Sui. 70 walked in front of Sui, who was in a daze, and said with a serious look, "Come with me. Let's leave this place quickly." "Why?" Sui looked over 70 twice, like it was his first time seeing her. "Did something happen? I have quite a few things to take care of this time. Not to mention that if I leave like this, wouldn't I be committing treason?" "Don't ask why." 70 shook her head. "I can only tell you that the elites of the kingdom's guards are on their way here. No matter how strong your magic is, you can't stop the attacks of over 1,000 people. So if you want to live, you have to leave with me right now." Sui deeply knit his brows. He didn't understand why the Lampari Kingdom's officials would suddenly change their attitude and kill him like this. What he didn't understand even more was why 70's reaction was so intense, not hesitating to use her personal guards to protect him. Although the two had a good relationship, 70 doing this was equal to helping a traitor like him. Even if she was a noble princess, this was still an unforgivable crime. 70 doing this was without a doubt sacrificing too much. "It doesn't matter." 70 gave a sigh as a trace of sadness appeared in her eyes. 70 revealed a sad look. "It's fine to give up the identity of the princess. Or rather, it's better to give it up." He was even more confused, but 70 didn't let him keep asking. She turned to get into the magic sedan and signaled for Sue-E to get in as well. Seeing 70's determined eyes, Sue-E hesitated a bit before turning to say a few words to Baron Ricto Magic Academy's Principal Fooding before sitting in the passenger seat. After Sue-E sat down, 70 skillfully started the magic sedan. With a turn of the steering wheel, the magic sedan turned and quickly drove out of Baron Ricto Magic Academy, disappearing on the road outside the academy. The cavalry led by Murloc also formed a neat formation and followed closely behind. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. When it was close to noon, a pure white magic sedan drove out of Samara Town. It charged up a slope and entered the Black Rice Wasteland. The pure white magic sedan suddenly turned to the right and drove off the road, coming to a high cliff beside the road. 70 got out of the car and came to the edge of the cliff. She looked in the direction of Samara Town with a complicated look on her face. Sue-E also got out of the car and came to 70's side. After looking at 70 for a while, he thought for a bit before asking in a soft voice, 70, did something happen? You don't seem right today. 70 kept looking in the direction of Samara Town for a while before shaking her head. No, it's nothing. Is that so? Of course, Sue-E didn't believe her. If it wasn't for something, how could 70's style suddenly change? Something must have happened, and it must be very serious. Otherwise, with 70's calm and determined personality, it was impossible for her to change this much. But 70 clearly didn't want to talk about it, so Sue-E naturally wouldn't keep asking. He just silently stood by 70's side, looking in the direction of Samara Town with her. Based on 70's expression, she shouldn't be looking at Samara Town, but rather the entire Lampari kingdom. But why was her expression filled with determination? Thinking of what she said before leaving the Baron Ricto Magic Academy, Sue-Yi's heart skipped a beat. Could it be 70 also wanted to leave the Lampari kingdom? 70 suddenly turned her head. Sue-Yi, how is your company's development of the magic boats? Sue-Yi was surprised. He never thought that 70 would ask about the magic boats at this time. It's progressing quite smoothly. The first magic boat has already completed a 500-kilometer test run, so it's qualified to be put into use. Next month, our company will make 2 more magic boats. If nothing unexpected happens, it's very likely that we'll have 5 magic boats by the end of the year. Sue-Yi replied. These magic boats have the ability to go out to sea, right? 70 asked. Yes. Although it hasn't been tested yet, based on the data, it shouldn't be a problem for these magic boats to go out to sea. Sue-Yi replied. Finally, he couldn't take the confusion in his heart and asked, 70, could it be that you also want to go out to sea like Leslie? 70's lips curled into a bitter smile. If possible, I really want to leave Signs, the further the better. It would be best if I could find an island far away from here and spend the rest of my life there. Hearing the disheartened tone in 70's voice, Sue-Yi was very surprised. He had always appreciated 70's strong personality. So just what had happened that made her have such negative thoughts about hiding from the world? After thinking for a bit, Sue-Yi shook his head and said, I'm afraid this wish can't be fulfilled for now. Our company's magic boats need to be used by ourselves first. According to the plan, our company needs to build a fleet of at least 20 magic boats. To achieve this goal, with our company's current production capacity, it'll take at least 3 years. 3 years? 70 slightly knit her brows. 70 slightly knit her brows. That is still too long. Sue-Yi gave a shrug. 3 years wasn't long at all. Rather, it was very fast. Building ships was completely different from making other things. Even if the tonnage of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's magic boats wasn't big, it would take a long time to build one. Moreover, Leslie has asked me to order a batch of magic boats, so I think it'll take a year or 2 to fulfill his order. When we have extra magic boats for you, I think it'll be at least 5 years later. Sue-Yi said, 5 years? 70 looked at Sue-Yi and, after thinking for a bit, she continued, then this matter can only be delayed for now. Sue-Yi, can you help me with something? Sue-Yi immediately said with a smile, no problem. As long as it's something I can do, you can tell me. All right, Sue, lend me a place to stay. Seeing the helplessness in Seveni's eyes, Sue was stunned and couldn't speak for a while. Chapter 581. In autumn, for other places on the signs, the weather would naturally turn cold. But for the Principality of Constantine, it was no different from summer. It was still hot and humid. Whether it was on Earth or in the Lampari Kingdom, Sue didn't have much time or opportunity to swim in the water. But after coming to the Principality of Constantine, because of the weather and the fact that he lived by the sea, Sue gradually developed the habit of swimming in the sea. He even specially selected a section of the beach and invested some money to develop it into something like a bathing area. In their free time, the workers of the New Flyer factory would often bring their families to the bathing area to relax. The Principality of Constantine's climate was always hot and humid, so the bathing area was very popular and lively at almost any time. Of course, Sue naturally wouldn't squeeze into the bathing area with a large group of people. Not far from the cliff of his manor, another beach was opened up. It could be considered his private beach. Other than occasionally going to the bathing area to have fun with the masses, Sue spent most of his time here swimming and relaxing. Today was a sunny day. After finishing his work, Sue came to this private beach again. Steele happened to be free today, so she, Liz, Linda, and Freya also came to the beach to play. Freya was only 1.5 years old, so naturally she couldn't go into the sea. But she was very interested in the soft sand on the beach, whether it was deep or shallow. She was very happy whether she walked unsteadily or grabbed sand and piled it up randomly. Looking at Freya's bright smile, Sue suddenly sighed. It's still easier for children to be happy. Steele glanced at him. What? Thinking of Her Highness again? I just asked her, but she still doesn't want to come. Sue, he shook his head. I really don't know what happened to her. Why did she suddenly become so depressed? She had been here for more than 2 months, but she was still hiding in the house all day long. If this goes on, I'm worried that she'll be bored to death. Steele frowned slightly. I've talked to her a few times, but she's never been willing to tell me. It seemed that what she encountered must be very serious, and it was not convenient for her to tell outsiders. If I'm not wrong, I'm afraid it has something to do with the royal family. Royal family? Sue frowned. There aren't many people in the royal family of the Lampari Kingdom. She doesn't intend to fight for the throne, so Eric naturally won't trouble her. What's she worried about? I don't know. However, the royal family is the darkest place of all the nobles. Her Highness grew up in the royal family, yet she was able to develop such a sunny, gentle, and upright personality. This is very rare. This should be Lampuri 13th protecting her well. Sue said with a sigh. It's a pity that she's become like this now. I really am curious about what happened. This is a secret of the royal family. Her Highness definitely won't tell anyone, so don't think about it. Steele shook her head. If you want to help her, just give her enough time and let her adjust herself. Her Highness has a strong personality. I believe that she will definitely walk out of this shadow. There's no other way. We can only patiently wait. Sue took a deep breath and shook his head, throwing away the worry for 70 in his head. His eyes fell on Steele, and he revealed a lecherous smile. Hey, Steele, this swimsuit really looks great on you. When Steele came to the beach with Sue before, she was wearing a traditional swimsuit. It was very inconvenient to enter the water, so Steele wasn't interested in swimming. But now she was wearing a new waterproof swimsuit developed by the Night Song tribe and the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Moreover, it was a tight-fitting swimsuit, so not only was it convenient to enter the water, it also completely revealed her figure. Although she had already given birth to a child, Steele's figure was still close to perfect. After wearing this swimsuit, her curves became even more pronounced, adding in her bright golden hair and her beautiful face that was filled with the aura of the sun. Even if Sue and her were an old married couple, he was still attracted to her. Hearing Sue praise, Steele didn't reveal any shyness. Instead, she stuck out her chest and revealed her beautiful figure to Sue. This swimsuit is really comfortable to wear. I have to say, the elves have indeed mastered a lot of strange things. If you didn't insist on cooperating with them, I'm afraid you wouldn't have obtained so many valuable things from them. Sui smiled proudly. Of course. Every race had its own value. What's more, the elves have ruled this continent for tens of thousands of years. Of course, they have some special knowledge that we humans don't have. Actually, I feel more sorry for the halfling race that has already disappeared. For various documents, the halfling race actually had a very high theoretical and practical foundation in the field of machinery. If the halfling race were still on this continent, I would definitely strive to cooperate with them. I believe it would be very helpful for the development of magic machinery. Steel turned her head to look at the sea and raised her finger to the depths of the sea. Legend has it that the halfling race didn't completely disappear. Instead, they left this continent on their own mechanical ship and went to the depths of the endless sea. It's said that there is another continent on the other side of the endless sea, so the halfling race might have already taken root on that continent. The depths of the endless sea. Sui looked into the distance and revealed a faint smile. When our company can develop the magic boats that can sail the deep sea, I will definitely organize a fleet and explore the depths of the endless sea. Steel, do you believe it? If the fleet sets off from here and heads west, they will come back from behind us, which is the east coast of the signs. How is that possible? Steel's eyes opened wide in surprise. If they keep going west, how could they come back from the east? Do you remember what I told you before? Actually, we live on a giant ball, so if we keep going west, we will go around the ball and come back from the other side. That's just your guess, right? Steel said with knit brows. Although when you say that the ship will gradually sink and disappear, with the mast disappearing in the end, this is very reasonable. But when you say that we live on a ball, that is too unbelievable. Why don't we fall? Sui laughed. This should be the problem that every main character who transmigrated to a less technologically advanced world would encounter, but it really was troublesome to explain this problem. Moreover, if he threw out this theory without any proof, it would be strange if people believed him. When I really organize this ocean exploration fleet, I will prove it to you. Sui looked into the distance before looking up at the sky. Actually, compared to the magic boat, the faster and more convenient way to travel around the world was to ride the magic airship. Because the magic airship didn't travel on the sea, it wouldn't be affected by the waves, so it was safer and more stable. But if they flew high up in the sky, the weather would be affected. If they met a storm on the sea, it would be very dangerous. If they wanted to travel around the world like on Earth, they were still far from being able to do it now. The magic airship project that Evita was mainly in charge of was a bit slower than the magic boat. Up to now, they had only built a medium-sized magic airship that could carry less than 5 tons. Moreover, because they hadn't completed the 1,000-kilometer test that Sui had set, they were still in the experimental stage and hadn't been able to carry people or cargo yet. This was because the magic airship was flying high up in the sky. If the magic ship broke down, it could still float on the sea, but if the magic airship broke down, it would fall from the sky, and the people on it would only have a path of death. So Evita had been very careful when developing the magic airship. She wanted every detail to be perfect, and she had to test it several hundred times before passing it. Naturally, this slowed down the development of the magic airship by quite a bit. Sui was very supportive of her attitude. The various magic machines that the new flyer had developed hadn't had any major quality issues yet, but that didn't mean that there wouldn't be any in the future. No matter what, it wasn't wrong to be strict, not to mention on such an important magic airship. When he thought of the problem with the magic airship, Sui suddenly heard a buzzing sound from behind him. Turning to look, he saw a shadow floating over the cliff behind them. It stopped right above Sui and Steel, covering Sui and Steel. Why are they here? Steel looked up in surprise at the magic airship above them. Perhaps they saw it when they were doing experiments. Sui replied before seeing a figure suddenly jump out of the magic airship. Sui and Steel were both shocked. Jumping down from such a high place, even if it was a soft beach below, they would still be smashed into a meat patty. But the two of them quickly reacted. The magic airship was still in the experimental stage, so Sui had strict requirements for Evita. Those who could board the magic airship had to be magicians who could fly. But even if they thought of this, the two of them still activated their magic at the same time and prepared themselves. Once they found that the situation was bad, they would naturally make a move to save that person. Chapter 582. Facts prove that the two of them didn't need to worry. At first, the man was falling at an extremely fast speed, as if he was free-falling. Halfway through, he gradually slowed down and finally landed as lightly as a feather. That person stood still and gave a laugh to Sue and Steele. It was Akali. Steele snappily glared at her. "Do you want to scare us to death?" Suddenly jumping down from above. "I want to be a bit faster," Akali replied with a smile. She took out a small square box from her pocket and pressed it before saying to the box, "Hey, Evita, Sir Chairman and Steele are here. Do you want to come down as well?" Evita's voice came from the box. "I don't need. You can report to Sir Chairman. I'll keep doing the flight test. Do you want me to come pick you up later?" "There's no need to pick me up. But you really aren't coming down? The weather is good today. It's very suitable for swimming. Didn't you bring your swimsuit? It would be a pity if you didn't use it." Evita's voice was a bit embarrassed. I just brought it along. I didn't want to swim." He couldn't help smiling as he took the magic communicator from Akali's hands. "All right, Evita, you can come down too. Let the researchers take care of the experiment first. I have something to ask you." Evita on the other side was silent for a bit before a weak voice came out. All right." After a while, the magic airship flew over and Evita floated down from the sky. Seeing that Sui was only wearing a pair of swimming trunks and was half naked, Evita's face turned a bit red. She calmed herself and asked Sui, "Chairman, is there a problem?" Before Sui could reply, Akali suddenly took Evita's backpack. She opened it and took out a swimsuit, shaking it in front of Evita with a proud look. "Hee, and you said you didn't want to come. Look, the swimsuit is already prepared." Evita's face turned red. She wanted to snatch the backpack and swimsuit from Akali's hands, but Akali dodged. Seeing the faint smile on Suyi's face, Evita said with embarrassment and anger, "I just put it in my bag. I didn't think. Sui laughed. "All right, since we're already here, we might as well take the opportunity to rest. Evita, Akali, go change into your swimsuits in the room over there. I'm giving you guys a day off today." Akali cheered, but she didn't rush to the house that Sui had specially prepared for her. Instead, she unbuttoned her shirt. Sui, Steele, and Evita jumped in fright. When they were about to stop her, they saw that she had already taken off her shirt, revealing a swimsuit inside. Sui couldn't help finding this funny. "I say, Akali, it can't be that you already planned this, right? You're wearing a swimsuit inside. Don't you feel uncomfortable?" "Not at all." Akali bent down and took off her skirt as well. Sui then realized that she was wearing the bikini-style swimsuit that he had suggested to Chairman Vincent. Although the culture of the Science Continent was rather open, swimsuits like the bikini that exposed a lot were still a bit advanced for the people of the Science Continent. Chairman Vincent had said that there wouldn't be many people who would choose this kind of swimsuit. He didn't think that Akali would only buy one and wear out so openly. Seeing Suyi's gaze land on her, Akali smiled and turned around. "What do you think? Mr. Chairman, do I look good in this swimsuit?" It does look good, but..." Sui nodded and held back his laughter as he continued, "Akali, this kind of swimsuit is suitable for that kind of figure. A rather voluptuous girl. I'm afraid it doesn't suit you." "Voluptuous figure?" Akali looked down at her body in confusion and found that her chest was flat. She immediately understood the meaning behind Suyi's words. Even though she had always been carefree and didn't have any scruples in front of Sui, she still couldn't help but blush when Sui suddenly said this. Adding on the fact that Sui was saying that her chest was too small, she was even more embarrassed and angry. She couldn't help but fiercely glare at Sue. She wanted to retort, but her eyes couldn't help but land on Steele's chest next to Sue. Looking at the two lumps on Steele's chest, Akali could only snort angrily. But when she turned her head and saw Linda and Liz playing with Freya in the distance, they also had large breasts. She couldn't help but feel a deep sense of defeat. Akali clenched her teeth and finally couldn't help but ask Sue, "Mr. Chairman, do you like girls with bigger breasts?" Hearing this question, Evita's face that had just calmed down blushed again. Steele looked at Sue with interest and waited for his answer. Well, from the public's point of view, girls with bigger breasts are naturally more popular. But there's a saying in my hometown that small breasts are a rare resource, so there are also many people who like them. Sue nodded and patted Akali's shoulder encouragingly. Don't worry, girls like you are also very popular. Akali rolled her eyes. I'm not asking if other people like them. I'm only asking you, Mr. Chairman, do you like girls like me or Steele? You can't compare. Steele is my wife. Of course I like her more. I'm not asking about people. I'm asking about this. Akali poked Steele's chest with her finger. This. From objective point of view, I still prefer girls like Steele. Sue thought for a moment and answered honestly. Oof, I knew it. Akali turned around angrily and walked to the beach. She jumped in and swam far away in the blink of an eye. Sue, don't you know how to be a bit more tactful? Steele glared at Sue. This hurts Akali's heart too much. Sue smiled and didn't explain. Turning to see that Evita was still in a daze, Sue urged her, Evita, go and change into your swimsuit. The magic airship should be doing a 200-kilometer cruise test this time, so it might take an entire afternoon to finish. You can have a good rest today. Evita thought for a bit before shaking her head. No, if something happens after I change in my swimsuit, it won't be convenient for me to rush over. I'll just bask in the sun and rest on the beach. Right, Sir Chairman, you said you had something to ask me. What is it? Seeing that Evita insisted, Sue didn't force her. Although Evita had a gentle personality, she wouldn't change her mind once she decided on something. This was something that Sue was very clear on after being with her for a long time. But he only said that he had something to ask Evita to come down, but he actually didn't have anything to ask. Now that Evita was asking this, Suyi's mind quickly turned, and he really did think of a few things that he cared about. What is the current limit of the medium-sized magic airship that you're currently developing? When it came to professional matters, the strange expression on Evita's face disappeared, and she became focused. We haven't tested the limit yet, but according to the data, it should be around 800 to 1,000 kilometers. Then can this limit be increased? For example, I need a magic airship that can cruise over 3,000 kilometers. Is that possible? So he asked. In theory, as long as you increase the size of the magic crystal cabin and increase the duration of the power, it can be done. Evita thought about it before replying, but this will affect the entire mechanical design of the magic airship. Moreover, as the magic airship operates for a long time, part of the magic array that provides power will be damaged. If it's a distance of 3,000 kilometers, the magic array will need to operate for over 50 hours, which is a very serious test for the magic array. Are you afraid that the magic array won't be able to withstand the high load and will collapse? Yes. Evita nodded. This problem has actually appeared with the other magic machines that our company has developed. For example, the 2 batches of magic fans that our company sold when we were established, we've been using them for close to 4 years now, and it's hard for the magic array to maintain normal operation, so there are many problems with them. After saying this, Evita looked at Sue and hesitated to speak. What? Just speak if you have a problem. Sue said. Sir Chairman, because the Lampari Kingdom has sealed all the businesses of our company in the Lampari Kingdom, our company can't provide after-sale service to the customers who have bought our company's magic machines. According to my estimates, the household magic machines that have been in use for over 3 years have reached the end of their lifespan, so it's very likely that there will be a collective product quality problem. If we don't take care of it properly, it might greatly affect the reputation of our company. Your worries are very reasonable. But, he gave a bitter laugh. I was almost considered a traitor by the Lampari Kingdom and wanted by the Lampari Kingdom. The new flyer has been completely rejected by the Lampari Kingdom. It's fine for other places, but for the after-sales service of the Lampari Kingdom, there's no good way to solve it for now. Evita was very clear on this situation, so she could only give a sigh when she heard this. She shook her head and also couldn't think of a good method. Sui frowned and thought for a while. All right, no matter what, the problem you're worried about is very important. I'll do my best to solve it. And if it doesn't work, I'll explain the problem to the customers who have bought our company's products in the Lampari Kingdom and compensate them as much as possible. It's very easy to destroy a company's reputation, but to build it up and maintain it, we have to pay a price. After receiving Su Yi's promise, Evita seemed to have put down a large stone in her heart, and a happy smile appeared on her face. Sir Chairman, I knew that you wouldn't be as cold-blooded as the other merchants. Su Yi shrugged and pointed at Akali, who was struggling in the sea. That might not be the case. At least Akali must be cursing me for being cruel and heartless. Evita and Steele looked at each other and laughed. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.